all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday 10 till 12.
Only on GBNews, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A week since the country was shocked by that horrific knife attack on the children's dance class in Southport.
Protests and riots have broken out across the country as we enter a sixth day of unrest.
The Prime Minister is expected to hold a Cobra emergency response meeting today as he condemns violence on the streets and has vowed that those involved will regret it.
We'll be asking, is it time for the politicians in power to recall Parliament in the wake of all the violence?
Top contenders for Kamala Harris's running mate have been interviewed by the Vice President as the announcement is expected later today.
As Tory MP Tobias Ellwood calls on the government to tackle social media disinformation in the wake of the protests, we're asking, is it time to remove anonymity from social media sites?
And in the Olympics, we saw the closest 100-metre final ever, with American Noah Wiles winning by, get it, 5,000th of a second, which is quicker than that, by the way. Adam Peaty said there's no point winning unless you're winning fair. Who on earth could he possibly be speaking about? And Tommy Fleetwood won himself the silver medal in golf yesterday.
Hello there. A humid day for everyone today. Outbreaks of heavy rain across Scotland with a Met Office warning in force. Find out all the weather details coming up soon.
The time has just gone 6 o'clock. Paul Coyte joins Isabel and myself. This is GB News. No, what I was saying, Paul, is what time. I don't
but
mean
if you say what time...
I meant what Keller, like...
Oh, Keller Atil.
It was at 8:30.
C'est un 8h30, mon ami. That's exactly what it was. Around 8:30.
I was hanging about, I thought, I'll wait.
Yeah, I watched the semi-final and I saw Heathcliff, whether or not he was going to make it. He was third in his... Hinchcliffe, sorry.
Heathcliff?
Definitely
what are you,
not
Kate
to get
Bush?
the C in there.
Yeah, Hinchcliffe.
Did he get into the final?
No, he didn't make it into the final. But the thing is, 22 years old, coached by Cole Lewis, one of the legends, of course, American. But he ran under 10 seconds. And every finalist was under 10 seconds. And that's the first time it's ever happened in a final as well.
It's incredible.
Incredibly
10 seconds,
amazing.
100 metres in 10 seconds, less than 10 seconds. Amazing. I did watch the 1,500 metres swimming. The Irish lad came third. That's a heck of a distance. That's long.
It is, because if you think 50 metres, I'm trying to work that out. So 50 metres is one length, 15, that's a lot of lengths. It's a lot of lengths, isn't it? It is a lot of lengths.
The thing I noticed about the swimmers afterwards, their head is underwater all the time and they're plying against the water. They get out after doing what they do.
Yeah, and barely broken a sweat. I think it's easier in the water because it keeps them cool.
You can't see the sweat, can you, when they get out?
Some of them.
Do you sweat if you swim?
Technically, yes, but obviously not in the same way.
Right.
Obviously, it's washed away by the water.
Yeah.
Well, you do. You sweat in the same way. You just don't see it.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, we're in accordance. So what I was going to say was the ages of some of these people. There was a young Canadian that won over the weekend, and then yesterday in the gymnastics, I've been watching so much gymnastics. My daughter loves it. 14-year-old boy competing. I mean, absolutely incredible, the talent some of these youngsters have. I've been loving it. Absolutely
Their bodies
loving it.
can bend. They're bendy bodies.
True.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is. I was having the same thing. Gymnastics. Look at Olga Korbut back in 72, Comaneci in 76. You know, very young.
Yeah.
Holmes back in 79.
You get to our age and you can't bend anything.
Yeah, you can't bend anything.
It all bends in the wrong direction.
All things bend when you don't want them.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Hello, good morning, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, online, on TV. We are here, GB News Breakfast. Violence and terror all across the country in streets as thugs target and burn down asylum seeker hotels in Rotherham.
Well, last night a police officer was injured outside a hotel in Tamworth as they dealt with what Staffordshire Police have called despicable thuggery. Downing Street's expected to hold a Cobra emergency response meeting. That will happen today after this escalating disorder. But the people of Southport, of course, are still grieving, as our North East of England reporter Sophie Reaper updates us.
The babies. Babies.
A community still in shock. 7 days ago, the brutal knife attack in Southport sent shockwaves through Merseyside and beyond.
It's horrific. It's horrific. I feel for the parents. I feel for everybody in Southport, and I had to come because it's what we do. It's what Merseyside does.
Lynn works at a children's club similar to the one where the attack took place. She says if it were her, she wouldn't be able to cope with the grief.
If it was me, I would have the inclination of killing myself, because that's the way it makes me feel. And that's why I've come from Liverpool. I had to come from anywhere today just to pay me respects.
Over the last week, people like Lynn have travelled from far and wide to support this community in mourning. But in the face of such reckless hate, the residents of Southport have come together.
I feel angry at what's been done, but I refuse to allow it to make me a victim. You know, it's not going to make me feel unsafe. This has always been a safe area, and I'm not going to change. I don't want people to have to feel unsafe in their own homes because some idiot did something.
Here in Southport, flowers have been laid and candles have been lit. And although nothing can ever bring back the lives that have been snatched away far too soon, this community will always remember them with love. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
Is going on. We want to hear from you if you have been involved. Obviously, we can protect you, your name. What are you protesting about? What's making you so angry? Former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blakesley running his eye over things, and former advisor to Boris Johnson, Oscar Reddrop, here in the studio as well. Peter, whatever the hatred, whatever the grievance is, I find it strange, as I'm sure you will be, that the police become the target of this hatred.
Yes, it's very unusual, particularly as I see recent events that were so predictable, and much of this really should have been anticipated. If we just rewind a couple of weeks, if we may, to Manchester Airport, I'm sure we'll all remember that, where initially we saw a police officer apparently kick a man and then stamp on his head. And then footage was later released of some clearly Asian origin men, shall we say, brown-skinned men, meting out horrendous levels of violence at Manchester Airport, all those matters still under investigation. That actually fueled the flames of disquiet within this country, particularly on social media. And I was following all this traffic. It was astonishing. And there was so much support for the police officers in those events on social media. Then, of course, so that laid the fuse to what was to come. Then, when we had the false tweet about who was responsible for that dreadful attack in Southport, that created by a bot account and put out there, that was the spark that lit the fuse. And then how quickly things flipped, and the police, amongst other people and other buildings, yes, have become, regrettably, the targets.
Oscar, we've seen a real sort of strengthening over the weekend of the rhetoric from the Prime Minister yesterday, saying that he can guarantee that anyone involved in this will live to regret it. Courts running through the night. He was Director of Public Prosecutions during the 2011 riots. He has personal experience of all of this from that point of view. Is he doing enough? I mean, the Cobra meeting's being held this morning. A lot of people were saying, why hasn't there been a Cobra meeting already? What's your take on it all?
Well, look, I have to say there will probably be a time and space for debates about why this is all happening and, you know, the thematically, society, all those kind of issues that may have contributed and burnt up over the last, you know, few days. On the issue itself, I think Starmer, and, you know, I've come on the show and happily identified weaknesses in Keir Starmer for many months, but I think on that pure, believable policing, we will find you, because this is like debased criminality. It really is as simple as that. And I think Starmer's press conference yesterday was actually half decent. And I think people should believe it. And I think people may
believe what? Believe Starmer?
Believe he can be quite ruthless on this stuff. When you look back at 2011,
listen. He's got no prison places. He's got no police officers. He's got no cells to hold these places, people. It's just talk. I guarantee you there will not be the levels of arrests and detainees that
that's a fair point
to believe.
That's a fair point, and I'd obviously defer to your experience as well. And that may take quite a bit of time, but ultimately that knock on the door will come because, like, you have to just. And Robert Jenrick actually, I thought, did a really good job from a Conservative perspective on Camilla's show yesterday. Criminality is criminality, and it's as simple as that. If we're a country that believes in the rule of law and law and order, then you have to come down on this stuff really, really hard.
And that's really important and interesting from a sort of... We're 4 weeks on from a general election where a lot of people who haven't voted Labour before voted Labour, and we've spent the last few years, haven't we, talking about the red wall and these people will be able to keep a hold of their votes. I'm told that Cabinet last week were being told that the reason people voted Labour is because they wanted law and order. They'll be very mindful of this, won't they, that they're trying to keep these voters...
Absolutely, and when a new government comes in and, you know, the intro speeches and all these promises and pledges, and then events change everything. And now this is the ultimate kind of real, as you were hinting at there, Isabel, like real test for Starmer. Real test.
Real test, which he ain't going to pass. I accept when you say that the knock may come to the door eventually, with CCTV footage and whatever. But as to actually what will be done, what will change, goodness knows. Peter.
Well, already in this country, regrettably, millions of victims of crime do not get an investigation. Whether that's your car stolen, your house burgled, phones stolen.
You're right, and this is easy political rhetoric from all of them. The rule of law, and the great word they use more than anything else is thuggery. Now, what if these people who are protesting, why does nobody, the media doesn't do this, the police don't do this, maybe they have a point about something. Will someone take them on board and say, look, we don't agree with you, we're not into anything that you're doing here, but what is your problem? And their problem surely shouldn't be with the police.
Of course, I wouldn't condone any of this lunacy and this criminality in any way, shape or form. But the fact of the matter is, what has driven this is people's concerns about two things. Number one is the rise of Islam in the UK, which concerns many, many people. They know very little about the faith, and it's very easy to go online and find statements from certain clerics that say they want to take over the UK. That's a major concern. Secondly, unlawful, unfettered immigration into this country, which politicians of different colours have repeatedly said they will get a grip of, and they manifestly haven't. Now, should you be in a pub, a restaurant, in the media, or anywhere speaking like this, the politicians will bring out their broad brush and paint you as being far right. 4 million people voted for reform in the last general election. I can overwhelmingly overwhelmingly confidently predict many of those millions had the concerns I've just highlighted, as did many people who voted for Brexit back in 2016 and manifestly did not get what they voted for.
But many a good point made there. But what we're seeing over the last few days does such a like when you're watching people, you know, set things on fire, smashing things up, destroying their own communities. They have nothing in common with the 99.9% of decent people who do have concerns about illegal immigration, the levels of migration to this country.
I entirely agree.
And for people, you do see it on different ends of the spectrum, the political spectrum, people wanting to conflate the two are so wrong. They are, these two groups are not the same. The decent people who think legal immigration to this country, you know, is. I mean, it's what both parties. It was a huge plinth for both their, electoral campaigns. They have nothing in common with what we're seeing at the moment.
But
nothing.
Also, they do have a grievance. No one talks to them. No one listens to what their grievance is, and that is a big issue.
It is, but just on the political problem this poses for Starmer, that time will come where we do need to dig over the contributing factors in society that have led to this. But this is a matter of policing at this point in time.
As you know, with your policing hat on, I mean, I've been to EDL riots as a reporter in the past, stab vests, the whole lot, had Molotov cocktails thrown at me. It's totally and utterly insane behaviour and directed lots of violence at police and the horses as well. Frightening stuff. Is arresting them, putting them in jail, facing the full force of the law going to help that situation, or are they going to be even more disaffected? I don't know what the answer is, but I feel as though actually that's probably going to perpetuate their dissatisfaction with the country.
The investigations into all these appalling events are going to virtually cripple the police's capability to investigate virtually anything else. It's really going to have a huge effect. Let me point out to people that if you set fire to a hotel, like some people did last night, arson with intent to endanger life carries a life imprisonment maximum term. Be warned.
Well, on that note, thank you both for your analysis. Plenty more from you throughout the course of the morning. Let us know at home what you think about all of this. As Eamonn says, what is behind it all? What is the answer? What do you think of the way Sir Keir Starmer is handling it all as well? Let us know your thoughts, and you do that by going to gbnews.com/yoursay.
Moving on to America, crunch time for Kamala Harris. She's expected to announce her running mate in a few hours' time.
And among the top contenders are the Transport Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Arizona Senator and former astronaut Mark Kelly, and the Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
We're now joined by former Nevada Republican Party Chairwoman Amy Takarian. Amy, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Where's your money going? Who do you think?
Well, I hear a lot of my more conservative friends who aren't sold on voting for Donald Trump once again, leaning towards Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. They like the fact that he's a former astronaut. He obviously is a senator who sits in the seat that former Senator John McCain once held. He represents the state of Arizona, which is a swing state, but typically leans more red. And they do like the fact that he also served in the military. So he looks and sounds phenomenal on paper. Plus, he would be somebody who would still come in and exude strength, but yet not overshadow Kamala. And I think that's also something that's really important when you're trying to pick a running mate. Is that going to be the actual choice? It's going to be very interesting because it seems too that we're hearing more and more the name of Governor Walz out of Minnesota. I know that a lot of Democrats are excited about him. He's a former teacher. He's a football coach. He seems to be a very well-respected individual, just your all-American dad as well. And so that's something that I think a lot of people were pretty excited about. He's not just an attorney or a former senator or, somebody who's being crowned, if you will. And so, it's going to be fun to see.
From a Republican perspective, who do you think from that list would Trump fear most? Who would be most dangerous as a pairing for him to go up against in November?
Well, I think actually he's going to have a tough time with all of them. And the reason being is because of his choice being J.D. Vance. And now that all of the past comments, and they're not even past comments from that long ago, that have now come to the forefront, that have really angered a lot of people, in particular the female base, which Donald Trump has struggled with to some extent. He needs to have the female base. He needs to have those votes, and he needs to have the crossover votes, because I think this race is still going to be very close, even though it's not Biden any longer. I think Harris is going to give him a little bit more run for his money, but I don't think it's going to be a landslide by any means. I still think that it's his to lose, but I think it's because of his choosing on his VP pick that he's going to be in trouble no matter who she chooses.
But never mind who she chooses, her on her own, she's doing very well in the polls. Her ratings are up.
Yes.
And she's at least level with Trump in the latest one.
Correct. And it doesn't matter which poll you look at. You know, polling companies can lean right, left, center, all over the place. And she is, as you just mentioned, neck and neck, or she's ahead. And she's even ahead in some of the swing states and in the Rust Belt states, which he had actually done fairly well the first time that he ran for president. So I think that really this is going to be a comms race. It's going to be a PR race. They're going to have to make sure that they do an excellent job at still keeping her up on a pedestal. She's going to have to continue, though, to really buckle down and do her research before she speaks, because she's known for having a word salad, if you will, where if she's not prepared, then she flails and she starts to ramble. And that really, I think, showcases where she has a weakness. And then you have, especially men, unfortunately, you have men on the right who then continue to repeat the derogatory comments that Trump has already stated, unfortunately, by calling her dumb as a rock.
I don't think she's dumb, but she's certainly an actress, Amy. She's certainly an actress. There's her and there's that Meghan Markle, and the two of them walk out. Honestly, what are they like? Yeah. They meet anybody, and it's oh, there's Amy to Carmen, Amy.
Yeah, they're BFFs. Oh! Yeah,
and they all get so hyped up and excited.
I've seen them all do. I've seen Obama do that. Oh hi to the big wave. Oh hi.
Hillary Clinton.
Hey there, how you doing?
Clinton was
no one in the room they know.
Yeah,
it's classic. It's very American.
But
we should try it. I think the British politicians.
But it brings out the worst in me. It makes me sort of dislike that person and not sort of feel that they're genuine in any way, whatever way they're trained to do all this sort of thing. I like a bit of a grumpy face myself, Amy.
Yes, there's lots to be said for that. I mean, there is, unfortunately, politics is also a show, and it's quite a circus. And so, you know, you have to play the part, you have to play the game, because perception is reality in politics to some extent. And I think that's where a lot of people get really disappointed and disenfranchised by politics. And it creates apathy, because people just think that, you know, you can't trust either side because of that phoniness. So you're right.
I just want to ask you before we say goodbye, we saw Trump and Vance out at a rally this weekend. Obviously, the aftermath of the attempted assassination, you know, still being felt, I'm sure. You know, what is the mood at these rallies now? And you know, is Trump rattled, do you think, or has he come back stronger?
Oh, I think he's come back stronger. I think, you know, his base was never going to leave his side, even prior to this unfortunate event taking place. But I think that you had some people who maybe didn't feel as comfortable coming out publicly with their support of Trump that now feel that it's safe to do so. And we even saw so in, you know, very, very well-respected people like Elon Musk come out within hours after the attempted assassination, very strongly in support of Donald Trump. So it's trickled down to people who are like-minded.
Amy, appreciate it all. Thank you for joining us today. That was very interesting.
Thank you.
See you. Bye. Hi there. Hi. How you doing? Hi. Looking good. Oh hi.
Anyway, let's have a look at the other stories coming into the newsroom. The Prime Minister is expected to hold a Cobra emergency response meeting today following those attacks on hotels housing asylum seekers. We are entering the 6th day of unrest. Keir Starmer is due to involve relevant ministers and police representatives who will discuss the response over the next few days.
Pharmacy leaders are urging people not to buy weight loss jabs online as they say shortages of Ozempic are expected to stretch into next year. The National Pharmacy Association's warned of a possible explosion in the unlicensed sale of medication online, which could lead to people risking their health by purchasing it without proper checks.
A third of parents would be interested in school term time only jobs. A survey by online giant Amazon has found. It added that almost half of respondents said they wanted more flexibility in their work, and a third of parents with primary school-aged children said they would consider switching to a term time contract. What a lot of nonsense. Does anybody want to work in this country anymore?
I think it's tough for mums with little
I don't
ones.
care if it's tough. It's been tough always. You know, think of it then, don't have children. That's it. Don't have children. If you haven't got time for them, don't have them.
Yeah, I don't think it's that simple.
See, you're another one of these. You're another one of these wishy-washy.
Your mum would have been at home.
Yeah, slaving away.
Yes, but that job still has to get done. But the people
But she only
are
had
still at work.
That was because
Now
only my
have to go
father.
to work to afford the same house.
No, because we didn't live in a posh house. Because we made the choice. My mum made the choice. She had 5 boys. Her job was to be at home. So you choose to say, I'm going to work.
But if you didn't get paid for those weeks in the summer and you could work I know lots of my girlfriends who've decided to work in education, for example, whether it's a nursery school helper or whatever, so that they get the summer holidays with their kids. There is an attraction for people who want a job. It's a kind of form of a part-time job, I suppose, but get still to have the holidays with children.
They don't want to go into an office. They want to sit at home. They don't want to work if it's outside term time.
You've got 6 weeks of holidays with your 5-year-old or your 6-year-old.
Who would be an employer?
What are you going to do with them, though?
Who would be an employer in this country?
Kids, though?
We're a lazy lot. This country is going to hell in a handcart. Don't have them. Don't have them.
That's not going to be good for the economy, is it? Who's going to look after all the old people?
Let's have another sprog. Good for the economy.
No, but there's
Let's
a huge link between we're already seeing a decreasing population. We'll have to bring more people in from abroad.
Well, that's another lie. It is a lie. Is the population going down, or are there too many people in the country?
The population's going down, and
But with too many people in the country.
Well, exactly.
Well, exactly not. One of those facts is a lie.
Maybe we can take more people in from abroad. I don't know. You decide. Let us know where you stand in that debate this morning. gbnews.com/your say.
And most of you, well, they won't, because the lazy ones will still be in bed, but those of you who are watching us, they won't be lazy. You're up, you're out tackling a job, and you'll be doing it in this sort of weather. Good morning, Greg.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Further heavy rain across Scotland through the day today. Dry and brighter across the southeast, but a warm, humid day for everyone. Outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and Scotland this morning. Some tricky driving conditions across western parts of Scotland in particular, with a Met Office warning out for much of the day. The rain will be heavy throughout much of Monday. Further south and east, it will be drier and brighter. Best of the sunshine holding on across southeastern areas. A muggy feeling day for everyone. Temperatures rising 25 to 27 across some eastern parts of England in the best of the sunshine. A little fresher across the northwest. As we head through this evening time, the weather front just slowly pushes a little further southeastward. You can see the heavy bursts of rain pushing along it across eastern parts of Scotland. The west, though, starting to turn drier and brighter as the rain starts to move away. Northern Ireland as well, starting to see some brighter skies across the far west this evening time. But that heavy rain transferring into northern England, parts of Wales, perhaps northern coasts of Devon and Cornwall as well. Could lead to some tricky travelling conditions as we move through into the evening time. Further southeast, a dry end to the day. Overnight into Tuesday, the weather front just slowly pushes a bit further south and eastwards, affecting parts of northern England, into the Midlands, central southern England. By the end of the night, some heavy bursts in there, turning clearer behind it. Temperatures fresher here, 10, 11 Celsius, but under the cloud in the south and east, temperatures around 17 or 18 degrees, so another muggy night to come. So this band of rain just slowly pushes its way south and eastwards through Tuesday, turning brighter behind it, fresher too, but also a scattering of showers, particularly across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. Some of these will be heavy at times. Perhaps the weather front just lingering across the far southeast through the afternoon. Temperatures here 23 or 24 degrees, generally the high teens further north and east.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, how about this? £30,000 extra in your bank to play with this year. It'd be very nice, wouldn't it?
How would you play with 30 grand? It would take you a long time to play with it, wouldn't it? Yeah. Imagine counting 30 grand.
Oh, well, I get stuck after about 150. 500,
1,000, 1,500, that's a lot to get
What's
through.
the most amount of money you've ever seen, like, in terms of cash? Like, have you ever seen a suitcase of cash? This makes you sound very dodgy, but, you know, through work or whatever.
Competition on TV, we used to fill up £10,000 or so in suitcases or briefcases, but the thing was, it was all false.
That's what I always think. How do you know?
Well, the top notes were real, and then underneath was just paper.
Yeah. Monopoly money.
Yeah, to see if people
well, we won't be giving you Monopoly money, that's a guarantee.
OK, but it could be yours, 30 grand, here's how you could win it.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
And good luck to all our competitors at the Olympics, which is really getting underway now because track and field.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. The 100-metre final last night. Did you see it? Blink and you would miss it. All over in less than 10 seconds. Paul Coit with all the latest Olympic action after this.
Unfortunately, he'll take longer than 10 seconds after this.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Well, the Olympics. Here's the man, Mr. Olympian, Paul Coyte.
That's me.
This morning.
Yes. I tell you, I've enjoyed. I don't know about you. I'm enjoying a lot of the other sports that I'd never normally watch,
and will never watch again.
Well, for another 4 years.
Such as?
Well, such as skeet shooting.
Rowing.
All that stuff.
No, the skeet shooting got...
See, look at your eyes.
No, that got me.
Then.
How come the girl... Now, wait a minute. She was
Amber
British.
Rutter.
How come... So she was deprived of a gold. She said she clipped the clay.
She did.
Did she?
So
well, why wasn't it given?
Well, I tell you the reason, and this is appalling. So Amber Rutter there, and she'd just given birth 3 months before.
No, little baby's on the front.
Yeah, the baby was there. She didn't know the baby was there. But anyway, during the skeet shooting, basically, there she is. You know, it's the clay pigeon shooting. So I don't know where they shout pull, and then the clay pigeons, 2 of them fly at the same time. Yeah. Bang, bang, and then you see the little puff of pink smoke. Now, it went to a playoff right at the very end. So, I mean, it really went down to the line. It's her and Crovetto Shadid from Chile. Went to a shoot-off. After 3 rounds, it was tied. So then it was pretty much sudden death. And then she shoots, catches the edge of one of the clay pigeons, or the skeets, or whatever you would call them. And it wasn't given because they said, oh, it's a miss. But they didn't give it because they didn't have a replay. In the Olympic Games, they didn't have a replay.
So they don't have a VAR situation or anything like that. Well, it is disgraceful. But
it is disgraceful.
If a blind man on a galloping horse could see that she clipped it, but there's no replay, but we have replay on TV.
Correct. Have you ever heard anything so ridiculous?
I think that's really bad.
I mean, these Olympics have been incredible for the replays. I'm thinking of the gymnastics where they pause it as they're doing each action. I mean, you've got every angle of everything. Yeah. Apart from when it matters on where you
And that is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
I mean, Amber was saying how pleased she was to win a silver medal, etc., etc. I mean, I would be livid about the situation because as she hit it, she's put her hand up and said, look, I've hit it. And everybody's like, well, there's nothing we can do because we don't have any replays. So I think it was unfortunate. But
so Amber got a silver instead of getting an Amber gold. Amber, well, her name is like gold practically, isn't it?
Yes. Good. Yeah.
Oh, well.
We've got to talk about the 100 metres because, goodness me, 0.005 seconds between gold and silver.
That isn't even the breadth of a nipple.
Yeah, I mean...
It is. In the way.
Breadth of a nipple.
Well,
that's the regular measurement.
It is the measurement.
I don't know, eyelash or something.
Yes.
A hair.
Even thinner than that. 5,000th of a second. It was probably 10 of those who could have done that. American Noah Wiles. So Noah, fastest. I'd say the fastest 100 metres race in history. It wasn't the fastest because he didn't break the world record, but all 8 runners
came close.
It broke 9 seconds. There was 0.12 seconds between first and 8th. Kishane Thompson from Jamaica, who I thought was going to win it, kind of like I slowed up. Actually, slowed up at the end. This is like 9.7 seconds, and then it was so close. And even, but the thing is, there's still controversy with that because Jamaicans are saying, look, it looked like Thompson actually won it. Because how do you tell? Can't you give them both a gold? But it's all done on a photo finish. But he's so close.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
so
I had some interesting experiences 100 metres when I was competing myself.
I thought you were a middle distance guy.
I've got very big thighs. Have you noticed how big my thighs are? Do you ever watch my bottom and thighs?
I've noticed, yeah.
I do. I watch them very closely.
They're runners' thighs.
They are runners'
that I
thighs,
have.
yeah.
But I remember 100 metres one time, going great guns, got to about, well, it was yards in my day, right?
Yeah.
So it got about 80 yards. And my hamstring went.
No.
Awful.
Really?
Yeah, really bad.
Pulled up lame?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness me.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, the difference build, because I always thought you were a middle distance guy.
Well, I was so talented.
Yeah, but come on.
Let me tell you how talented I was.
You can't.
I could do javelin, discus,
Oh, I
everything.
couldn't do the
You were like
throw.
Daley Thompson.
What
weren't
about
you?
the high jump?
No. Couldn't do the high jump and couldn't do the
Long
pole
jump?
vault.
Oh, the pole vault.
Pole vault is a tricky one, you know, because so if there was not decathlon, maybe you could do 8 events or anything.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
A heptathlon.
An octathlon.
An octathlon with Daley Thompson, or we'll call him Monthly Thompson in your case.
Have you seen that documentary with Daley Thompson?
I have seen it. Yeah. Yeah. It's fantastic.
I can never remember what channel it's on. Is it on?
It was on the BBC, I think.
Amazon. I don't know.
It was on one of those.
It was very
One of those channels.
Very good.
But
very,
the thing, but also Linford Christie. Did you see the documentary about Linford?
I haven't seen Linford's.
Linford, there's someone who I think has he was one of our greatest sprinters.
He was a hero for me.
And he was done for drug taking, although it was never proved because UK Athletics cleared it. And it was right at the end of his career, or he's retired, and it's tarnished his career, tarnished his life. So very unfair.
Yeah. Oh, well. No, we must go.
You know what? I haven't even got started with the Olympics, but luckily I'll be here.
We could just do a whole programme on the Olympics.
I think that would be the...
Yeah. Djokovic beat Alcaraz in a reckoning after the Wimbledon final.
Did you have a nice holiday?
I had a very nice holiday, but I had to watch loads of Croatian Olympics. Lots of handball. I was thinking, for crying out loud, any more handball than Donna Vekic. Can't stand it anymore. So
you and Isabel were at the same destination?
We were. We were in touch quite a lot, weren't we?
We were in touch.
But we weren't actually in the same part of Croatia.
No. Because you've got that. You like to keep at least 100 miles away from me.
I've still got the restraining order.
Well, I wasn't going to use those words, but it is the law. So, yeah. But no, I had a lovely time. Thank you. But I missed you, and it's nice to be back.
Yeah, it's nice to have the team back together.
Paul, we'll talk more next time, right?
Mark Foster joins us live from Paris to talk swimming.
Fantastic.
And the poor Irish lad and all. Well,
Daniel Whiffen.
Yeah, he's
a gold medalist.
He is. He's done very well. He's done very well. So
very good.
Right. So what are we going to do now?
We're going to take a quick break, and after that, we'll be going through what's making the news today.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit at Junction 9 at Bannockburn remains closed for emergency repairs. In Newport, the A48 is closed each way along Chepstow Road at Langston for an investigation. That's been closed since yesterday morning. In London, on the North Circular, there are 2 lanes closed northbound at the A12 Redbridge roundabout after an accident causing delays. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking nearly half an hour already this morning in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In Hampshire, the A36 is closed northbound from Our to Blackhill for emergency repairs, and there's a revised red funnel sailing between Southampton and East Cowes on the Isle of Wight because of a technical problem. Most sailings have been retimed to depart later than usual, with some cancellations. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should Prince Harry have accepted an award named after a US war hero at a glitzy ceremony last night? People begged him not to, but he did it anyway. It's time for tonight's head-to-head. Well, Prince Harry paid tribute to the eternal bond between mother and son as he appeared alongside his wife, Meghan Markle, at the glitzy ESPY Awards, dubbed the Sporting Oscars last night. The Duke accepted the Pat Tillman Award, named after a US war hero, for his Invictus Games work. But Harry's decision to accept the award was shrouded in controversy after more than 76,000 people signed a petition demanding he reverse his decision. Well, speaking last night, Harry paid tribute to Pat Tillman's mother, Mary. But that comes after Mary Tillman slammed his decision to give Prince Harry the gong, saying, "I am shocked as to why they would select such a controversial and divisive individual to receive the award. There are recipients that are far more fitting. These individuals do not have the money, resources, connections or privilege that Prince Harry has." So tonight I'm asking, should Harry have actually accepted the award? Let me know your thoughts. Go to gbnews.com/your say. Tweet me at GBNews and make sure you take part in our poll. But going head-to-head on this now, a former royal butler, Grant Harold, and the journalist and broadcaster, Laurie Turner. Thank you very much. Great to have you both on the show. Laurie, I will start with you. I mean, the mother didn't want Harry to have it, but he did it anyway. What do you think?
I just think it's incredibly tone deaf. He seems to have an amazing ability to not read the room. It wasn't like this was a surprise because the opposition to him getting this award had been growing. So he had the chance to say, actually, I hear what you're saying. I'm not going to accept the award. But he didn't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Two Olympians in the studio now to go through the newspapers. Chris Akabusi.
A real one.
A real one?
Well, I happen to think Dawn Neeson's an Olympian of media, so she is. I've seen her on everything this week, every programme on every channel. Incredible. But so gold medal all round, I would say there, Dawn. Look, guys, we want to start talking about the troubles over the weekend, last night, a week on since those ghastly, horrible, almost unspeakable murders in Southport as well. So what is going on, Chris?
So,
look, here's what I'm trying to say. If you've got a grievance, if you've got a gripe, why aren't you taking this up politically? Is it because nobody's talking to them? They're not getting a chance to air their grievances? And why take it out in the police? And the anger, these people, I'm sorry, they have to be on drugs because running up against a police dog or a police horse or police behind shields with batons, being on your own, standing there. I tell you what, it takes a lot to be a police officer because if I was a police officer, you'd have got close to me and then that would have bang, down.
Look, I think that what we've got in society at the moment is frustration of 20 years of austerity and a sense that the politicians are not in it for you, the common person.
Well, you see, this is what I think, Chris. I absolutely agree with that. I think, however distasteful, however horrible, it doesn't matter if you agree or don't agree with these people who are protesting. Somebody has got to speak to them. Somebody's got to find out what is your issue.
But can I just make a suggestion that we might be over-intellectualising it? It's like saying, what is the issue with football? Could they just be morons? That they haven't thought about it. They just see an excuse to get drunk and burn stuff.
No, that is the problem. And also the problem is how they're termed on far right.
Far right.
You never sit and see all these protests about oil or whatever and they're termed to be far left. It's always far right.
I think the main problem, if you've only got to look at the pictures, and it's on the front page of all the newspapers today, apart from, ironically, the Daily Star, the anger on people's faces. I mean, it is genuine, absolute fury. I mean, to a point, Isabel, yeah, there's thuggery, there's violence, and that is idiots. But there are a lot of people out there who are turning up to protest, not getting involved in the rioting and the thuggery, as it's been called, who are genuinely angry. They're angry and they're frustrated about what is happening to this country. And they feel that people aren't listening to them. They feel that there is a Westminster bubble, and I think they might be right on this, that really is saying what you think doesn't count, because what you think is, if you're worried about immigration, I think Brendan Cox nails this. He goes, being worried about immigration into this country, Joe Cox's husband, isn't far right. You are allowed to feel that. You're allowed to be angry about that. But I think there are lots of people out there who are concerned that if they are tried to articulate how they are worried about the immigration into this country and the way they perceive the country to be going down the pan, they are being told to shut up. You can't say that. That makes you racist. That makes you
and
far right.
We're not just talking men here. I'm looking at a picture of a woman here being arrested.
It is, I mean, to be fair, the thugs, and I'm using the words that the government are using here, are mainly young men, and they're very, very angry young men. We've seen this before a million times. Young men get angry. But there are women there. I read a comment from a pensioner who was went to a protest in Blackpool. He's in his 70s. He said, I'm not here to attack the police. He goes, that's stupid, but I am here because I am concerned of what is happening to my country. And he goes, but I'm not far right. I'm just concerned. I'm worried.
Yeah, but the problem is that you're saying it's all about immigration, when actually I don't think it's about immigration. I think it's about poverty.
Yes.
Yes, no, I think you're right, Chris. Sorry to jump in there. I think the two issues have been conflated. I think they are worried about they can't get a hospital appointment, they can't see a GP, education, the cost of living. But all of this has been fuelled with the immigration issue as well, which we have been speaking about constantly, and the small boat
Which is why we've
crossing.
got to be very careful about our language. But
yes, absolutely.
The media and politicians got to be very careful, because you might have the intellect to be able to debate it, but when it gets down to the ground, it gets very debased, and you get what we've seen.
Yeah.
And people don't know the difference between a recent immigrant. So my parents were immigrants. They were students. They went back to their country. I was born here. They can't tell the difference between me and a boat person, whatever that may be.
This is what I want. You don't
But I
mind.
think all they're saying, Chris, is, and this is where the whole message is mixed up, they're just saying, whoever you are or wherever you're from, we just can't take any more, and someone's got to listen to us. And the thing is, nobody is listening to what they have to say. These politicians don't listen until it gets to a stage in the country where someone says, right, folks, that's it, we've done our bit, we've taken 400,000 migrants in, can't do any more, thank you, we're going to close the borders. And, what is wrong? What is wrong with that? And what is wrong with having that grievance?
So, as I said, I don't think immigration is a problem. I think we'll make it a problem because it's easy. It's an easy place to label.
Yeah, yes, but as Dawn said there, they are integrated, they are mixed. The idea that doing without services, jobs, whatever it happens to be, and the migration situation. Look, the thing is, people don't understand in this country. You've got this whole Muslim religion, Islamic religion, whatever it is, and people, this is alien to them. This alien.
Chris, your perspective is so interesting, because I think what has happened is a conflation between legal and illegal migration, and those people who are coming in to help with the health service, with all of these jobs that need, whether it's hospitality, that the government are encouraging and inviting to come in to be doctors, to be whatever it might be, are being conflated with these people who are coming in illegally, perhaps deliberately losing their documentation. We don't know who they are, what they are. They might be criminals. And everybody who basically is of a different colour skin gets, if you debase the whole debate, becomes labelled with the same...
And that's the problem. So I saw a guy in a park yesterday, a black guy walking in the park, and all of a sudden, before I know, he's surrounded by 200 guys who want to beat the living daylights out of him. Now, I don't know that black guy. I don't know who he is, where he comes from, but I do know he was in danger of his life. I saw a car being set upon, and I can't repeat what was said, but the words were, kill somebody who hasn't got a father, and they were trying to drag some people out of the car. I don't know who they are or where they come from. So what happens in the end is that you get normal law-abiding citizens who get caught up in something, and someone's going to die. Now, I know what happened in Southport was beyond the pale. It was disgusting. I don't know the story behind it, but the guy was obviously deranged. But that young black guy does not then warrant umpteen other black people, black and brown people, getting murdered for just the colour of their skin, which is where we're going to go to.
Yeah, and we had the most shocking conversation. I hope don't you mind me to turn this, Chris. I did ask. But Chris, he's served for the armed forces in this country. He's fought for this country. You represented this country in the Olympics. I mean, you are more British than most British people could ever imagine being. You've done your bit. But you now, as a black man, are worried about your safety. And I found that profoundly, as a friend, profoundly shocking and upsetting, that many ordinary people like you now will be feeling like that.
Yeah.
Because of this.
So innocent person, at the moment, I'm going to come in on the train. But I didn't come on the train this morning. I took a car, I took an Uber into here because I thought to myself, I don't want to be stuck on a train station at 4:30 in the morning and be caught up in something. I might be a quick runner, but I don't fancy the chances.
No, it's dangerous.
So that's the challenge. Is you're going to have young. I mean, I had a discussion, with an Asian lady yesterday, and she wouldn't let her boys go into Birmingham, for example. So she's got two boys, one is 18, the other one's 15. They weren't allowed to go into Birmingham yesterday, just in case. And these are discussions that are happening, maybe not at your table, and, you know, with all due respect, not on your table, but there'll be people with a colour hue who'll be having these sort of discussions going forward if this doesn't get stopped
There's
right now.
There's a really weird parallel world as well going on where we've got the Olympics, which I think is brilliant for diversity in this country. And you look at so many people from different ethnicities representing Team GB, and you think of the story of Mo Farah in the past as well. The ultimate sort of immigrant story, really, isn't it? He came in illegally, was as we've all seen the documentary, out there winning medals. Should we turn our attention to last night, Chris, and using your expertise? Because, oh my goodness, what a 100-metre race final that was.
It was phenomenal, and Noah Lyles, he really divides the community because he's big, he's brash, he's trying to be a showman. He's actually trying to take over from Usain Bolt. He hasn't quite got Usain Bolt's talent, but he's certainly got more than the mouth. And it looked like, if you looked at the first round in the semi-final, that actually his mouth was not able to keep up with his legs, and he wasn't going to be able to do it. And then when the race happened, I mean, honestly, a film of paper over all of them.
Oh, my God.
And the funny thing, Thompson, his toes were ahead of the line. But as we all know, when you're an athlete, it's about dipping to the line. And Noah Lyles, with all that smooth activity, dipped to the line and just...
I feel so sorry for the people that came 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th because they are incredible athletes and nothing to show for it and all that work.
I know. Literally winning that by a nipple. It was just incredible.
You said it! You said it!
It's true. It's what it was. I mean, is this actually a thing? The second person this morning, is it?
It protrudes.
It is a technical...
Don't get me started on the pole vaulting, though.
Steady on. Steady on. Well, listen, we'll have more from both Dawn and Chris Akabusi in the next paper review just after 7:30. But for now, thank you both very much.
Let's get a look at the weather here by a nipple. Greg Dewhurst.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Further heavy rain across Scotland through the day today. Dry and brighter across the southeast, but a warm, humid day for everyone. Outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and Scotland this morning. Some tricky driving conditions across western parts of Scotland in particular, with a Met Office warning out for much of the day. The rain will be heavy throughout much of Monday. Further south and east, it will be drier and brighter. Best of the sunshine holding on across southeastern areas. A muggy feeling day for everyone. Temperatures rising 25 to 27 across some eastern parts of England in the best of the sunshine. A little fresher across the northwest. As we head through this evening time, the weather front just slowly pushes a little further southeastward. You can see the heavy bursts of rain pushing along it across eastern parts of Scotland. The west, though, starting to turn drier and brighter as the rain starts to move away. Northern Ireland as well, starting to see some brighter skies across the far west this evening time. But that heavy rain transferring into northern England, parts of Wales, perhaps northern coasts of Devon and Cornwall as well. Could lead to some tricky travelling conditions as we move through into the evening time. Further southeast, a dry end to the day. Overnight into Tuesday, the weather front just slowly pushes a bit further south and eastwards, affecting parts of northern England, into the Midlands, central southern England. By the end of the night, some heavy bursts in there, turning clearer behind it. Temperatures fresher here, 10, 11 Celsius, but under the cloud in the south and east, temperatures around 17 or 18 degrees, so another muggy night to come. So this band of rain just slowly pushes its way south and eastwards through Tuesday, turning brighter behind it, fresher too, but also a scattering of showers, particularly across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. Some of these will be heavy at times. Perhaps the weather front just lingering across the far southeast through the afternoon. Temperatures here 23 or 24 degrees, generally the high teens further north and east.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit at junction 9 at Bannockburn remains closed for emergency repairs. Trains have been stopped between Leicester and Kettering, where overnight engineering works have overrun. On the A1M in Hertfordshire, the outside lanes closed southbound between junctions 8 and 7 near Stevenage for emergency barrier repairs after an accident overnight. In Newport, the A48 is closed each way along Chepstow Road at Langston for emergency repairs. That's after a burst water main flooded the road. In London, on the North Circular, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound off the A12 at Redbridge after an accident with queues towards there. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking nearly half an hour in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. And in Hampshire, the A36 is closed northbound from the West Wellow services to Blackhill because of emergency repairs. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It is a week since the country was shocked by a horrific knife attack on the children's dance class in Southport.
Protests and riots have broken out across the country in that week as we enter a 6th day of unrest.
Well, Keir Starmer is expected to hold a Cobra emergency response meeting today as he condemns violence on the streets and has vowed that those involved will regret it.
We'll be asking, is it time for politicians to recall Parliament in the wake of the violence?
Top contenders for Kamala Harris's running mate have been interviewed by the Vice President, as the announcement's expected imminently.
As the Conservative MP Tobias Ellwood calls on the government to tackle social media disinformation in the wake of the protests, we're asking, is it time to remove anonymity from social media sites?
And in the sport world, it's Olympics. 4 medals for Team GB yesterday. Hopefully a gold on the track later. We saw the closest 100-metre final in history with American Noah Wiles winning by, that's that, 5,000th of a second. Every sprinter was under 10 seconds. And Adam Peaty has said there's no point in winning if you're not winning fair. What country could he possibly be referring to?
Hello there. A humid day for everyone today. Outbreaks of heavy rain across Scotland with a Met Office warning in force. Find out all the weather details coming up soon.
Good morning to you. It's just gone 7 o'clock. Sorry, 1 minute past 7. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast. So, violence and terror across the streets of the country as violent thugs targeted and burnt down asylum seeker hotels in Rotherham and Tamworth.
Downing Street will hold a Cobra response meeting today after a week of escalating disorder.
But the people of Southport are, of course, still grieving. And our North East of England reporter, Sophie Reaper, has all the latest. A warning, though, this does contain reference to suicide.
The babies. Babies.
A community still in shock. 7 days ago, the brutal knife attack in Southport sent shockwaves through Merseyside and beyond.
It's horrific. It's horrific. I feel for the parents. I feel for everybody in Southport, and I had to come because it's what we do. It's what Merseyside does.
Lynn works at a children's club similar to the one where the attack took place. She says if it were her, she wouldn't be able to cope with the grief.
If it was me, I would have the inclination of killing myself, because that's the way it makes me feel. And that's why I've come from Liverpool. I had to come from anywhere. Today's just to pay me respects.
Over the last week, people like Lynn have travelled from far and wide to support this community in mourning. But in the face of such reckless hate, the residents of Southport have come together.
I feel angry at what's been done, but I refuse to allow it to make me a victim. You know, it's not going to make me feel unsafe. This has always been a safe area, and I'm not going to change. I don't want people to have to feel unsafe in their own homes because some idiot did something.
Here in Southport, flowers have been laid and candles have been lit. And although nothing can ever bring back the lives that have been snatched away far too soon, this community will always remember them with love. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
Watching that with his former advisor to Boris Johnson, Oscar Reddrop, joins us in the studio. Oscar, just looking at the response we're getting a big response coming in from people. This message from Paul today. Dear Prime Minister, I've got a novel idea for you. Instead of instantly spouting tough-sounding sound bites, try listening to people's concerns. Attempt to understand them and try to address them. Because if you don't, people will listen to anyone who does, extremist or not. I see the sense of that. Now, a lot of people may say dismiss these people who are rioting on the streets, but if we do that, the anger doesn't go away. We don't understand what their problem is. What's your view?
I think there's probably a balancing act on that front. I think he will have a lot of people around him, and I think rightly so, who is saying, right, well, you know, we are experiencing, you know, rioting, and, you know, you can justify or you can contextualise, but ultimately debased criminality. And so from a policing and safety perspective, we need to get on top of that now. Potentially set himself up for a slight fall, because, and you made the point earlier, Eamonn, and I've been thinking about it since you said it, you know, are people going to believe it? Because he said we're going to identify, we're going to swiftly arrest, and we're going to swiftly throw you in a cell and arrest you with a tough sentence. And so that he set himself a real big challenge there, and people will be watching that. In terms of leaving the vacuum and people having conversations in society, that 100% needs to happen, and it needs to happen really soon. Yeah. But just right now, in almost the literal heat of what we're experiencing, if we are a country that believes on, you know, the rule of law and being tough on this level of criminality, that has to be the priority now.
Even it, but we haven't got the resources to deal with it. So, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of arrests, hundreds, maybe thousands of arrests with all of this. He hasn't got the cell capacity, he hasn't got the police force capacity to deal with this. They hold the shots.
Yeah, and Peter earlier on made a really valid point that I hadn't thought about either, which is, you know, other crimes still take place during this time. So you divert all this resource away to deal with this. That's understandable, it's logical. But I think a lot of people in Britain feel that they don't bother reporting crimes anyway because it's never going to get dealt with. And that's people are only going to feel that more acutely over the next period of time.
What about Parliament in this? Some people calling for Parliament to be recalled. There's a Cobra meeting being held, emergency government response meeting, which a lot of people are saying, why haven't they done that already? That's happening this morning. And also some debate about whether or not, the Prime Minister should go on holiday, which he was scheduled to do this week, although Downing Street's saying it's not imminent, but that could be, later in the week.
You can't go on holiday. It's as simple as that. You cannot go on holiday at this moment in time. I'd be completely shocked and surprised if he did. In terms of recalling Parliament, I think there will be a lot of MPs who will want to scrutinise, any emergency legislation or just the debate around this. I think the Cobra meeting, again, when he sits around and he talks to police chiefs and sets out his priorities, that is very important. It's good that's happening. I think ultimately, though, and we've moved so far away from where we were last week, is that, and your VTs have shown it very clearly and emotively, and to my shame in some ways, I almost forgot why, one of the reasons why we might be here, is that what happened in Southport. And the time that we could have been spent talking about their lives, there's a community, it has been, and there's a community that is absolutely desperately grieving, and I hope some of the time that Keir Starmer expends politically is actually diverted towards that a little bit, and talking about that, and actually how we heal a very specific community in this moment in time.
Well, on the point that Paul, who sent in that GB your say earlier about listening to people, I mean, I think that was a misstep from the Prime Minister last week when he did visit, that he sort of was in and out, and it just looked like it was in for a photo shoot.
I agree, actually,
not
on
listening
that as well.
to the concerns of people there. And perhaps none of this would have escalated so much had he handled that differently. Who knows? We will never know. But there is an argument that that was a test that he failed. But he has definitely toughened up his rhetoric as the week's gone on.
I mean, the rhetoric which is directed towards rioters and people who break the law, constantly over and over and over again, the word used is thugs and thuggery. It's used by the police, it's used by politicians, it's used by the media. People like ourselves incorporate this. However, no one calls the anti-capitalist supporters thugs when they smash windows and when they hang off the M25 barriers and all sorts of things like that. And I just think people have got to, you're a thug or you're not a thug. You can't sort of say this is a far right terminology that we're going to use. If you use it for one, you use it for all.
So the other point, and I'm shock your viewers to know I'm not a policing expert, but from a communication standpoint, there's a kind of a push and pull thing where Starmer and his team will be going, we need to be seen to be on top of this. So, we've had 2 press conferences in the last, few days. We'll have a readout probably, off the Cobra meeting. There'll be media. And there's a balancing act between being shown to be really proactive on this stuff, but actually getting in the moments like this, you have to get every single word spot on, because if you don't, it risks escalating things. So there's a balancing act between him wanting to look really proactive, but like you kind of hinted at there, some things you don't say. People see, oh, why hasn't he mentioned this? It's the stuff you leave out sometimes that can cause as much trouble for you as definitions.
I suppose what I'm saying, Oscar, is however distasteful all that is going on is, and there's no doubt it definitely is, if you leave these people out of the conversation, if you don't suddenly say, oi, come here, right, tell me, what is your problem, what is your issue, then you will have hotels burnt down, you will have the police being attacked the way they're being attacked. I'm just trying to think how we diffuse this.
That time, unfortunately, the time for diffusing probably is a little bit too late. Like these are people committing quite serious. I mean, it's not like throwing a few bins. No, this is like really serious criminality, and that getting on top of that for any government. I don't care if you're Labour, Conservative. If we believe in the rule of law and order, that comes first, and then the space for debate and talking comes perhaps after.
Bring on something else. What does it take for you, me, Isabel, to take to the streets, to attack a police officer, to attack a police horse, a police dog, whatever it happens to be, to try and burn down a hotel while people are inside it? What does it take for you to throw everything aside, to do that. Norms go out the window completely. You know, it is unbelievable.
It is, and sadly, as we saw in 2011, I think someone pointed this out to me. There are a lot of quite young kids who probably have no idea what they're kind of tagging along to the back of during these things, and they've walked into a shop and they've nicked something, and they're just like, but to them they don't quite understand the context.
No one's saying at that point, should we sit down and chat to these guys?
Yeah,
find out what is their
exactly, and they might get some pretty tough sentences.
Yeah.
Oscar, let's go. We're going to go to Rotherham now to find out all that went on yesterday, and at least one hotel, maybe two, Anna Ryder will tell us more, attacked with all of this. But how bad was it yesterday, Anna, and what's the situation like this morning?
Well, Eamonn, this is the aftermath of the day before here at the Holiday Inn Express in Rotherham in the Manvers area. It's used to house migrants, and police say around 700 people were in attendance at a protest that broke out into disorder. As we can see here just in front of us, the scale of what's happened. So we can see the chairs here, the smashed windows completely smashed through as rioters broke into the hotel, and objects, as we can see on the floor, long pieces of wood which were taken from a nearby fence, were used to break into the hotel. At least 10 police officers were injured as a result of the violence, with one left unconscious following a head injury, another suffering a suspected fractured elbow, and another suffering suspected broken bones. Luckily, no hotel employees or residents have been reported as injured as a result of this disorder. We're just coming further around the hotel now. You can see where this window has been broken, and chairs and tables have been just stuffed into the space, as well as, if we just move over here, we can see where a fire must have broken out. We can see charred wood just over there. We know that a generator was set alight, and a number of small grass fires were also put in place, and police are still in attendance now, as well as other media here this morning. We can see a police van there, several police officers over there, some of them still with the padded trousers, armed just for any more disorder and trouble potentially today. We know that several men attacked police cars as well, including those police officers with riot shields. And in the aftermath of this incident, the South Yorkshire Police have spoken out. Assistant Chief Constable Lindsay Butterfield said the mindless actions of those have achieved nothing other than sheer destruction, leaving members of the public and the wider community in fear. The behaviour we witness has been nothing short of disgusting. While it was a smaller number of those in attendance who chose to commit violence and destruction, those who simply stood and watched remain complicit in this. Those who chose to spread misinformation for the scenes. It was not just a protest, just angry people reacting to a false narrative, and it just says that this caused division amongst the community and harm to police. And like you mentioned earlier as well, Keir Starmer speaking out again yesterday about saying he's going to clamp down on actions like this one.
Well, thank you for showing us the picture, showing us the aftermath today, Anna. We will leave it there. We go to Sally Baker now. Sally's a trauma specialist therapist. And I suppose, Sally, the reason we're talking to you is what makes people do this? I mean, is it just politics?
It's a perfect storm. It's 14 years of Tory legacy, the division, the broken country, the lack of funding, the disparities between North and South, everything that the Tories have done, how they've broken the NHS, how they've destroyed young people's dreams and stolen people's lives. So we're faced with a country that's completely divided. And Starmer's coming to power just as the weather broke. So now we've got hot nights which is perfect for recreational rioting, along with, I mean, there are people who have real grievances. Whether this is the most effective way of progressing those grievances.
Sally, I think you've hit upon something amazing there, and I know this from Northern Ireland, recreational rioting. We have it every single year. They've got stuff all else to do, and they enjoy it. I have seen so much footage from yesterday, people laughing, people enjoying what was going on.
It's an evening out. It's a cheap evening out. Yeah, it's very desperate to speak about it in such terms, but there's definitely an element of that, which is tragic for all of us, tragic for the country.
And look, you clearly have an anti-Tory position, but aside from the politics, we actually wanted to talk to you about the kind of trauma that the community in Southport are going through at the moment. It's 1 week on, horrible anniversary to be marking today. How and can that community ever move on from what, you know, obviously it's an active legal case going on, but what seems to be just a totally random killing spree?
Well, as the close families of the poor girls that died must feel that their grief has been completely gazumped. That's how it would look from the outside, that the world events, country events have overtaken them, and their grief isn't even on the front page of papers anymore. But what else is Mom, one of the poor girls that died, his mom did on social media? She said, I'm going to do this once. And that was an acknowledgement of her own overwhelming grief. I'm going to ask you not to do this. We don't need this. And there's been lots of calls from different communities who've been really resilient and saying, not in our name, this is not about us. And for every demonstrator that's come out, there've been peaceful people come out trying to dissipate the violence, trying to protect mosques. Southport, for several nights, came out and cleaned up the debris and the aftermath of the rioting that they suffered. Communities like Southport are very resilient, and they're going to come back. But the grief of those parents is forever.
Unfathomable, yeah.
I think that really showed the community that exists in Southport. However, we're not seeing the same sort of thing in Rotherham or in Stoke, for instance. And what I'd like to say to you is, think if you were a migrant and you were in that Holiday Inn Express yesterday and you were on the inside, or even if you're not on the inside, but you had to go back to stay there last night. And what about the fear that those people have to deal with? Because, you know, we talk about the violence, we concentrate on that, but no one talks about the threat which the people who are the migrants are living under.
They're already traumatized people, aren't they? I mean, they've been, you know, traveling hundreds, thousands of miles. They've probably come across in boats or in backs of trucks. Some of these people have been here for a long time now. No one is even addressing the trauma of the migrants and what they have to live with, and the flashbacks, the fear, the anxiety that impacts their lives every day. And it must have been terrifying to be under siege and not knowing if they were going to be burnt alive in their accommodation. Terrifying.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for summing that up for us. Sally is a trauma therapist. Thank you very much indeed. We'd like to say to you, if you were out rioting, if you were attacking the police, or you were throwing bricks, or indeed you were laughing at what goes on, what makes you tick? Let us know today. Get in touch. Have your say. Let us know. We'll protect your identity. Just like to hear what you have to say, how you justify. The Prime Minister says you're a thug. Do you see yourself as a thug, or do you see yourself as having a genuine grievance?
Time now to check in on the weather. Greg Dewhurst has all the details for the week ahead.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Further heavy rain across Scotland through the day today. Dry and brighter across the southeast, but a warm, humid day for everyone. Outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and Scotland this morning. Some tricky driving conditions across western parts of Scotland in particular, with a Met Office warning out for much of the day. The rain will be heavy throughout much of Monday. Further south and east, it will be drier and brighter. Best of the sunshine holding on across southeastern areas. A muggy feeling day for everyone. Temperatures rising 25 to 27 across some eastern parts of England in the best of the sunshine. A little fresher across the northwest. As we head through this evening time, the weather front just slowly pushes a little further southeastwards. You can see the heavy bursts of rain pushing along it across eastern parts of Scotland. The west, though, starting to turn drier and brighter as the rain starts to move away. Northern Ireland as well, starting to see some brighter skies across the far west this evening time. But that heavy rain transferring into northern England, parts of Wales, perhaps northern coasts of Devon and Cornwall as well. Could lead to some tricky travelling conditions as we move through into the evening time. Further southeast, a dry end to the day. Overnight into Tuesday, the weather front just slowly pushes a bit further south and eastwards, affecting parts of northern England, into the Midlands, central southern England. By the end of the night, some heavy bursts in there, turning clearer behind it. Temperatures fresher here, 10, 11 Celsius, but under the cloud in the south and east, temperatures around 17 or 18 degrees, so another muggy night to come. So this band of rain just slowly pushes its way south and eastwards through Tuesday, turning brighter behind it, fresher too, but also a scattering of showers, particularly across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. Some of these will be heavy at times. Perhaps the weather front just lingering across the far southeast through the afternoon. Temperatures here 23 or 24 degrees, generally the high teens further north and east.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Big reaction from you about the weekend's events. Sheila says some rioters will be unadulterated thugs, others frustrated individuals who have little to lose because unfortunately they have little investment in society. They see society giving benefits and support to unknown people who illegally come in over their own priorities and needs. It was a tinderbox which just needed a match, and that comment is very, very typical of what you're thinking and what you're saying.
But in cheerier news, imagine having £30,000 to play with. An extra 30 grand in your bank account wouldn't be too shabby this August. Here's how it could be yours in the Great British Giveaway.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, there we go. Still to come in the wake of all of this business that's going on at the moment. We're asking social media, what role has social media got to say? Because people seem to be able to go on social media, lead others, but they can do this anonymously.
Yeah, and perhaps from abroad.
Yeah.
Hostile states. Who knows who's behind it? We'll be debating that with Tobias Elwood.
In other words, should your name go with your post and your identification, or should it just be the way it is now and you can say anything you want when you want? Next.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have said stump.
you made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're going to talk about social media now, and the former Conservative MP Tobias Ellwood has accused the spread of online misinformation for fueling the unrest and violence that we are experiencing at the moment.
Well, the former chairman of the Defence Select Committee believes anyone using social media should be charged a fee for posting and therefore directly accountable for the messages that they publish.
OK, so we know your name, we know where it's come from, you are responsible for what you post. Now, some people will say that anonymity preserves the existence of free speech. What do you make of all that? Let's now speak to Tobias Ellwood and the Deputy Director at the Free Speech Union, Ben Jones. Gentlemen, good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, Tobias, let's start with you and your suggestions. You clearly think that what we are witnessing a week on from the tragedies in Stockport have been largely sort of spread and propagated by people hiding anonymously on social media.
Yeah, I mean, can I just begin by just saying we've seen the best of British on display in Paris at the Olympics, where our team's proudly been displaying the Union Jack, and then the worst of British, these thugs carrying that same flag, but doing the nation's reputation so much damage. And they're able to do that so much more efficiently because of the growth of social media. And I'm posing this question, really. Have we advanced the rules to keep up with how social media is now dominating our society? It both allows disinformation to be fueled so quickly, tensions ratcheted up, and allows also the thugs to rally themselves in different places, to mobilize themselves. And we cannot ignore how it's warping views, it's changing the norms and actually fanning racism and hate. I agree we should have free speech, but there comes a responsibility with the freedom of that speech. No one, in my view, should now have a social media account without being accountable. Therefore, you can be tracked down and charged possibly, let's say, £1 a year for the privilege of having a social media account. Public expression comes with responsibility. We have seen that. We do not want to see our communities ripped apart as they have been this weekend.
OK, Ben, why should you have a social media account, be able to say what you want, when you want, and not be accountable?
I spent
4 of the last 5 years completing a doctorate interviewing former Muslims in Britain, ex-Muslims, people who'd grown up in the Islamic faith and then left it. One particular story sticks in my mind. This was the case of a then 19-year-old woman who interviewed me as part of this research. She was a lesbian, was growing up in an ultra-conservative Islamic household, in an ultra-conservative Islamic community. Her only lifeline was through anonymous social media use. Now, Tobias's proposal, however well-intentioned, would inevitably become a dragnet. It would capture people like that young woman and in every way make her life more difficult. It would cut off her only lifeline to the outside world. I'd also point out that I'm afraid it must be said, as after the murder of Sir David Amess in 2021, that this debate, I'm afraid, is a distraction from issues that have plagued this country for 25 years. And go all the way back to the Council report in 2001, when it was warned that communities in this country were living parallel lives. Such was the state of disintegration. That's long before anyone had access to social media, before social media was invented. I'm afraid this is not something that social media has done to Britain. This is something we have done to ourselves.
Okay.
But what about those hostile states, Tobias, those people who are exploiting the divisions in this country, the people who are feeling maybe disenfranchised after the election? How do you tackle that? Because you can easily charge them £1 and make sure that they have an account that you have a name for, but are you going to go after somebody in Russia if they're stoking up problems? It's almost an intractable problem, isn't it, the internet, social media?
It is a problem, there's no doubt about it, but it needs addressing. We cannot watch this advance and impact our society in the way that it has. And the individual example that's just been given, I'm afraid, is a complete red herring. It's not true that any individual Muslim that may be in a particular situation has no access to the wider world. I've studied this too. And anybody in that situation can reach out via the NHS, because that's the service that they are able to then communicate with. That's what those Muslims do. I've seen that. There's a distraction, that particular example. Look what just happened to Britain this weekend. It happened because social media was mobilized in the way that it was, and the police could not keep up with it. We need to be responsible about this. It's affecting our society. And what you've mentioned is absolutely important. The bots that are operating in Russia, that are influencing British politics, that are coercing opinion in this country, could easily be challenged, because the platforms, the British servers that are operating here, could ensure and guarantee that they are Britons at the other end of that particular messaging.
Just ask, though, if the police are already struggling to keep up with what's being whipped up on social media, are they even going to be able to follow through if there isn't this cloak of anonymity? There's just too much out there for them, who are already short-staffed and frankly need to be physically boots on the ground dealing with these hotspots as they arise.
Well, firstly, they are accumulating evidence, so I'm sure that all those people that participated this weekend, I hope that they will be slightly cowering this morning, wondering whether the knock on the door will be the police turning up using their evidence. But this will actually act as a deterrent as well. Yeah. If you knew that you could potentially be arrested because you are using the platforms, the servers, in the wrong way, that you are actually breaking the law by inciting violence, by exhibiting racism, you might think twice about it. So that would work as well. I stress that this is also for the platforms, the servers themselves, to raise their game, because in the real world, this applies. Why does it not apply in the digital world?
Okay,
we need to have parity
that is the
here
question.
between
Tobias and Ben, we've got to leave it there. Thank you both very much indeed for raising the points. Thank you. And talking about Olympics, we've got Mr. Paul next.
He did a bit of a sprint himself there.
Wasn't bad, was it?
Inspired by the 100 metres last night.
It wasn't bad. And the thing is, I did it very quickly when nobody was noticing, but I dipped when I got to the dip. I dipped when I got to the chair.
Was it a nipples distance?
It was quite larger than nipples distance. It was a whole chest, in fact. Four medals for Britain yesterday. I'm expecting golds today. Touch wood or whatever. But Keely Hodgkinson goes in the final of the 800.
OK. Talking about that next. Keep it here. Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. And Paul.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit at junction 9 at Bannockburn remains closed for emergency repairs. On the M6 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed southbound where a lorry caught fire between junctions 20 and 19 from the M56 to Knutsford, causing delays. Trains have been stopped between Birmingham New Street and both Tamworth and Coleshill Parkway after a points failure. On the M11 in Cambridgeshire, there's a lane closed each way between junction 13 near Cambridge and 14 for the A14 for barrier repairs after an accident on Saturday evening. On the A1M in Hertfordshire, there's a lane closed southbound for barrier repairs between junctions 8 and 7 near Stevenage after an accident overnight. In Newport, the A48 is closed each way along Chepstow Road at Langston for emergency repairs. In London on the North Circular, 2 out of 4 lanes are closed northbound off the A12 at Redbridge after an accident causing queues. In Hampshire, the A36 is closed northbound from the West Wallow Services roundabout to Blackhill for repairs.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have said stump.
you made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true.
You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I love the Olympics. It's just so good, isn't it? It's lovely to have Paul Coit in the studio with us to reflect on another amazing weekend. And not even just the Team GB wins, but actually the 100-metre final. For me, that's the pin-up moment, isn't
It's
it,
the
of
blue
Olympics?
ribboned.
The blue ribbon.
Do you know what the blue ribboned means? Have you ever heard the phrase, always the blue ribbon? You get people, oh, it's the blue ribbon. It's not the blue, it's the blue ribboned.
Yeah, so a ribboned is not a ribbon.
No, a ribbon is not a ribboned. A ribboned, it was from where, I can't believe I'm doing this, but anyway, it was fast ships back in the 1860s would fly this flag, which was blue, to show how fast they were, and it made them showing off that they were the fastest ship of all. So the blue ribboned event, that's where it comes from.
Oh,
a blue ribboned.
Well, it's a highlight, and goodness me, last night didn't disappoint.
Noah Wiles, yeah. I mean, Noah Wiles, you know what I really liked about Noah Wiles? During the World Championships, the Indoor World Championships, and this stuck with me, although he's one of these, as often 100-metre runners are, very brash, very brazen, very lippy, you know, it all goes with the territory. I remember he was doing an interview and there was a Canadian that won a gold medal. And during the interview, he went, I'm not talking anymore. Respect to the... And he stopped during that national anthem. And I thought, you know what, I like that.
Yeah,
it was something I appreciated.
that's nice.
But he is, he's a great runner, and he wasn't actually that good in the heats. So there was a chance we're thinking, you know, maybe he's not going to win this race.
Yeah, Hinchcliffe beat him in one of the heats, didn't he?
Absolutely. Yeah, Hinchcliffe did. This is Louis Hinchcliffe, not Cliff.
I keep
Hinchcliffe, who is only 22 and he's coached by Carl Lewis, and he got knocked out in the semi-final and still run sub 10 seconds.
Yeah, incredible.
Everybody ran sub 10 seconds, but Noah Wiles, it was 0.12 difference between the first and eighth.
I wonder if we've just got used to, because of the Usain Bolt era, of always having a winner that's like a leg or two ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
But actually, now that Usain Bolt's out, you realise how narrow that field is.
Yeah.
And it's devastating for those people that come 4th to 8th, because they're literally this close, a nipple's distance.
That's it.
To being in a medal, and they're all such amazing athletes, and nothing to show for it. It's
yeah,
tough, tough at the top.
Kishane Thompson from, there's Noah there, Kishane Thompson, who's Jamaican, just so close, 5,000th of a second. How you actually measure that, I have no idea. But anyway, he came second.
And GB got 4 medals.
Tommy Fleetwood, silver in the golf. How do you feel about the golf being in the Olympics?
I don't think it's an Olympic
Like
sport,
tennis.
personally.
Yeah.
I just think surely you've got enough to do without doing that. However, very good for Tommy Fleetwood. He missed out on the gold, though.
Yeah, it was like the 17th.
And Rory just come outside the medal places as well.
Surprised there, Rory didn't finish it off in the end. Sorry,
Yeah.
Rory. But it was won by Scotty Scheffler. And it showed what it meant, though, to these professional athletes that earn a fortune. He was in tears at the end because he was so moved by the whole thing. And the same thing went for Novak Djokovic, who won gold, and it's the only thing he's never won. And he was very emotional. Yeah,
and obviously he redressed the defeat at Wimbledon like a month ago.
That's
when
right.
Alcaraz beat him.
And he was injured at the French Open, and that was where it was played.
And so when's he going to buy out?
No time soon, I don't think.
Well, I don't know. I think, he's got the set now, and this is the thing that he wanted more than anything else. He didn't realise that when he started his career. He's got a gold medal now. He's won everything. Maybe this would be the time to walk away. But like you said, I don't think it's going to be anytime soon.
Never quit at the top.
But today, though, good chance of gold medals. Keely Hodgkinson, fantastic 800-metre runner. She just blew everybody away yesterday in the semi-finals. And also, we've got the mixed triathlon. Gets underway 8 a.m. this morning. Hopefully no E. coli caught from the River Seine, but that gets underway at 8, so there's a great chance of a gold medal there as well.
Do they have mixed boxing now as well?
They apparently have already, I hear.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. How long do we have on that one? Probably 2 hours, so maybe I'll leave that alone for now.
Don Neeson and Chris Akabusi, they're up next. Paul, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles has launched his own aftershave, costing, wait for it, an eye-watering 135 quid for a 100 millilitre bottle, promising buyers that they can smell just like the gardens of his Highgrove country pile. Now, this is something that Meghan Markle would do, surely not the King. Is this a case of King Charles selling out, watering down the brand just like Meghan? Well, join me now to discuss this is the royal broadcaster Helena Chard. Helena, welcome to the show.
Martin,
often on the
hi.
show, we've had a pop at Meghan Markle, the Sussexers, for selling out, for flogging strawberry jam, and now the King is flogging Pong. Is this really the right royal thing to do?
Do you know what? So the joy of luxury Highgrove splash, at the end of the day, Highgrove is such a special place, and the Highgrove shop sells amazing things on there. And as we know, the profit actually goes towards charity. So it's the King's Foundation, which was formed in 1986. Profits go towards educational and training, and it's all to do with this sort of sustainable world. But not to forget as well the charitable aspect and the whole ethos of the King's Foundation, and that's so important. This is not just something that's going up on the website and just being sold purely to go into someone's pocket. So I think, all in all, I think everyone should have a look at the Highgrove website and see what's on for sale. I mean, there are lots of really lovely, I think pretty fairly priced products. And even more so, go and see the gardens. As we know, King Charles is a keen environmentalist, and the gardens are fabulous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We've been having a really good conversation with Chris and Dawn, and we're going to continue it now as they go through the stories in the papers. And it's the troubles in Rotherham last night and Stoke and whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah. So basically, what I was saying to Dawn in the green room is that what the people that we are aligning thugs, and his thug is behaviour quite clearly and disrespectful behaviour, etc. These are working class people who over the last 20 years have experienced austerity measures. They've found it difficult to get their own jobs, many of them. And what they've noticed is, I voted for Brexit, nothing's happened. I've voted out the Conservative government and brought in Labour. And the first thing that Labour has done in the first 4 weeks is they've hammered Granny. So Granny now, she's lost 600 quid of her pension. We've got no money in the house. And they wanted, and they just flipped because nobody is listening to their concerns. You know, they've tried the political system, and it's failed them as far as they're concerned. And they're now making. When I was a kid, they were saying, if you can't hear, you must feel. And that was when your parents would give you a good old clipping if you didn't do what you're told. Well, this is the sort of thug's answer to that. If you can't hear what I'm saying, then let's feel.
But why are they? You see, Chris, you've just said it there. You've called them thugs. I'm not disagreeing.
No, I'm saying that's what they're saying in the papers. But
they're also saying far right. They don't call far left people thugs.
No.
Well,
well, they are, but they are thugs, the far left.
But they're not termed like that by the politicians or by the media, Dawn.
No, and I wanted to read this out. This was from a message we got at the weekend. John Crook is a plasterer, travelled from Bradford to Liverpool for the rally. He goes, the government aren't listening to people like me. I'm not racist or far right, but I do have concerns about immigration. I grew up in an area of Bradford, which these days is like a no-go area, and nobody wants to admit it. And this is the problem. And I think it's incredibly dangerous to tar everybody with this same brush. You have to listen to people.
And this is not an English-only problem.
No,
2 weeks ago, we covered this story big time from Ireland, and this really caught people's imagination as well. It's happening in Ireland. Ireland's part of the European Union. It's happening here.
But I would say, you know, I'm not hearing anything but the rhetoric that supports these views from the leaders, the people who want to be leaders of the Conservative Party. They're all saying immigration's the problem.
Yes,
we need housing and education for British people. And, you know, it's kind of taken over the whole debate. That's pretty much what GBNews talks about every single day and has done for years.
But anybody in power isn't doing anything about it. So the thing is, do you pull out of any European constraints on this? Do you just finally say...
Then it becomes conflated, doesn't it? Because that's just talking about the boats issue. But actually, that's the only part of immigration that is illegal. And actually, the vast majority, something like 645,000 people came in with the government's permission last year.
Yes, but people are saying, why is that the case? Why are people here not getting the jobs? Why are people... And I was hearing something yesterday about a youngster who had 37 job applications. Well, I said, well, there's 50,000 jobs available in this country, but there's not available to certain people. They're not available. And I could begin to tell you the people they're not available to. And that is what is going on out there, Chris. And that's what people feel. They feel no one is listening to them.
Yeah, but a lot of the jobs, I mean, a lot of people are not taking up the jobs. There are jobs there. I mean, one of the Uber drivers I was with, he's actually a solicitor. He's a solicitor. By day, he does Uber work by night because he wants to buy his own house. So actually, a lot of people, immigrants, legal immigrants, they will do 2, 3, 4 jobs in order to get on the housing ladder, etc., etc. There are jobs out there if you want the job. So I don't want to talk about that. Now, what's going on here is beyond the pale, and it's the tip of the iceberg. And
what would you do, Chris? What would you do? What's the way of dealing with it? Send in more police, throw these people in jail the way the Prime Minister's saying he's going to?
With the jails that were already full to bursting a couple of weeks ago, we've had that conversation ad nauseum, and now suddenly there's room.
No, I mean,
well, there's not. There's obviously not.
Well, quite
there's
clearly.
not going to be. And this is just political speak again.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen.
Yeah.
Nothing will change. We know that. So how would you deal with this?
What I would do is politicians stop the rhetoric about being swamped by umpteen amount of immigrants coming in and start listening to the white working class person, understand the grievances, understand the fact that they've been hammered since 2008. When you were giving money to the bankers, when you were giving money to the pharmaceutical industry, when you're giving money to the mighty military industrial complex, when you're giving money to Ukraine, but you're saying to them that they cannot actually heat their homes at the same time as put food on a plate. That's the challenge. They are poor and they're saying enough is enough. They are poor.
Speaking of the bankers, the stock markets are looking rather dodgy this morning, and this is in Asia, Hong Kong, China as well. They've seen them dropping sharply during trading early this morning, and this is all around fears that the US economy could be heading for a recession, which, of course, whenever they sneeze, we catch a cold. And will that feed into all of this if our economy is likely to follow suit? It'd be interesting to see. I think the market's open in about 8 minutes here. You know, what kind of day we're going to see.
If you play stock markets, though, you're not really bothered about the incidental ups and downs, are you? All that matters when you play stock market is the day that you buy your shares and the day you sell your shares. You shouldn't play in a stock market if you can't afford it. The money you
put... It's the temperature it tells us, I suppose, of like what's going on around the world. You know, apparently it's the worst since 1987 was one of the reports I was reading.
Yeah, but stocks and shares, people make money by going up and down, don't they? The people who can afford it, the great big houses, they sit there with their hands crossed, wait for it to go down, buy more, and then they sell it when it goes up. It's only the people that are speculating that actually get hurt.
You see, this is it. It's all about big business and how people manipulate the markets and whatever it is. It's not about those people, however distasteful all of that rioting is and ghastly it is and not condoning it in any way, but they don't count. We don't count. It is only big business. Everything is to do with capitalism.
I think a lot of people also got annoyed at Yvette Cooper speaking out as well, saying sort of like, we're going to throw the full force of the law at it, absolutely, as you should. But also sort of like, you know, we're going to free up the courts, we're going to have more police on the streets. And it's like, well, how are you going to afford all this? How's it going to happen? And, as you know, we've got so many problems with our legal system at the moment, and yet suddenly you can sort it all out. Suddenly there's room in the jails. Suddenly courts can sit and hear.
But there isn't. There isn't.
Well, because they can't prosecute rape cases, Chris, and suddenly they can clear backlogs and sort of like get these people into court straight away. I'm not saying they shouldn't be in court straight away, but suddenly you can do this. What about before? What about all the problems we've had before?
But it's rhetoric. It's rhetoric. It's talk. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. A lot of it is talk. They were fined money for what was it? Is it? I don't know. £3 billion now for Ukraine ad infinitum, for as long as it takes. But we can't afford Granny to pay 600 quid to Granny's. That is a challenge. That's what these guys are saying. Well, you've forgotten me. You're not listening to me. Every time I bleat, you tell me to shut up, but you find money for the.
Why are the police the targets? And we've got
because the police represent the government.
Authority.
Yeah, that's it. It's not the police per se. They're just the
They represent the government.
Thank you very much.
Right. OK. Thank you very much indeed, Dawn and Chris. And look, you guys come back in about 40 minutes' time and we'll get in. And we'll talk about Meghan and Harry. They're on the telly.
They did a sit-down interview talking about her suicidal
Meghan's been
period.
on a journey.
Yeah.
So
we'll get on that journey and talk about that very shortly. The weather situation, if you're off today, could you enjoy it? Let's go to Greg.
Warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Further heavy rain across Scotland through the day today. Dry and brighter across the southeast, but a warm, humid day for everyone. Outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and Scotland this morning. Some tricky driving conditions across western parts of Scotland in particular, with a Met Office warning out for much of the day. The rain will be heavy throughout much of Monday. Further south and east, it will be drier and brighter. Best of the sunshine holding on across southeastern areas. A muggy feeling day for everyone. Temperatures rising 25 to 27 across some eastern parts of England in the best of the sunshine. A little fresher across the northwest. As we head through this evening time, the weather front just slowly pushes a little further southeastward. You can see the heavy bursts of rain pushing along it across eastern parts of Scotland. The west, though, starting to turn drier and brighter as the rain starts to move away. Northern Ireland as well, starting to see some brighter skies across the far west this evening time. But that heavy rain transferring into northern England, parts of Wales, perhaps northern coasts of Devon and Cornwall as well. Could lead to some tricky travelling conditions as we move through into the evening time. Further southeast, a dry end to the day. Overnight into Tuesday, the weather front just slowly pushes a bit further south and eastwards, affecting parts of northern England, into the Midlands, central southern England. By the end of the night, some heavy bursts in there, turning clearer behind it. Temperatures fresher here, 10, 11 Celsius, but under the cloud in the south and east, temperatures around 17 or 18 degrees, so another muggy night to come. So this band of rain just slowly pushes its way south and eastwards through Tuesday, turning brighter behind it, fresher too, but also a scattering of showers, particularly across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. Some of these will be heavy at times. Perhaps the weather front just lingering across the far southeast through the afternoon. Temperatures here 23 or 24 degrees, generally the high teens further north and east.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M80 in Stirling, the northbound exit remains closed at junction 9 at Bannockburn for roadworks. Trains have been stopped between Birmingham New Street and Tamworth because of a points failure. On the M11 in Cambridgeshire, there's a lane closed each way between junction 13 near Cambridge and 14 for the A14 for emergency barrier repairs after an accident on Saturday evening. There are queues back on the A14 towards there from junction 24 at Boxworth. On the A1M in Hertfordshire, there's a lane closed southbound for repairs between junctions 8 and 7 near Stevenage after an accident overnight. In Newport, the A48 is closed each way along Chepstow Road at Langston for emergency repairs to a burst water main. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking around half an hour in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In Hampshire, the A36 is closed northbound from the West Wallow Services roundabout to Blackhill for emergency repairs.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway. An incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. David from Kent was our last big winner. Listen to what he had to say about getting that winning call.
Hi, I'm David from Kent and I won £15,000 and it couldn't have come at a better time. I was gobsmacked. What have you got to lose for what it costs? In fact, I've done it again this week, so I'd recommend it to anybody.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very good morning to you. A week since the country was shocked by that horrific knife attack on the children's dance class in Southport.
Protests and riots have been continuing across the country as we enter a 6th day of unrest.
The Prime Minister will hold a Cobra emergency response meeting today as he condemns violence on the streets and has vowed that those involved will regret it.
We've been asking if it's time for politicians in power to recall Parliament in the wake of the violence.
Top contenders for Kamala Harris's running mate have been interviewed by the Vice President as the announcement is expected imminently.
And as the former Tory MP Tobias Ellwood calls on the government to tackle social media disinformation in the wake of protests, we ask, is it time to remove anonymity from social media sites?
And in the Olympics, 4 medals for Team GB yesterday. Hopefully a gold on the track later with Keely Hodgkinson. Maybe also in the mixed triathlon, which has just started in the Seine. We saw the closest 100-metre final in history with American Noah Wiles winning by 5,000th of a second. Every sprinter under 10 seconds. And Adam Peaty said that there's no point in winning unless you're winning fair. One of our greatest swimmers and pundits, Mark Foster, will discuss with us in about 20 minutes.
Hello there. A humid day for everyone today. Outbreaks of heavy rain across Scotland with a Met Office warning in force. Find out all the weather details coming up soon.
Well, the time 1 minute past 8 o'clock. A very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster and this is GB News Breakfast.
What we're going to do, first of all, is just reflect how you are thinking about the violence that's going on across the country. And a lot of you just feel that the people who are protesting, distasteful though it is, awful though it is, ghastly though it is, somebody's got to talk to them. And Tony says concise and sensible comments regarding recent events of rioting and violence around the UK is what's needed. Well, that violence targeted and burnt down asylum seeker hotels in Rotherham, in the northeast of England, and in Tamworth, which is near Stoke.
Well, Downing Street is expected to hold a Cobra emergency response meeting today after a week of escalating disorder.
The people of Southport are still grieving, as our reporter Sophie Reaper has the latest.
The babies. The babies.
A community still in shock. 7 days ago, the brutal knife attack in Southport sent shockwaves through Merseyside and beyond.
It's horrific. It's horrific. I feel for the parents. I feel for everybody in Southport, and I had to come because it's what we do. It's what Merseyside does.
Lynn works at a children's club similar to the one where the attack took place. She says if it were her, she wouldn't be able to cope with the grief.
If it was me, I would have the inclination of killing myself, because that's the way it makes me feel. And that's why I've come from Liverpool. I had to come from anywhere. Today's just to pay me respects.
Over the last week, people like Lynn have travelled from far and wide to support this community in mourning. But in the face of such reckless hate, the residents of Southport have come together.
I feel angry at what's been done, but I refuse to allow it to make me a victim. You know, it's not going to make me feel unsafe. This has always been a safe area, and I'm not going to change. I don't want people to have to feel unsafe in their own homes because some idiot did something.
Here in Southport, flowers have been laid and candles have been lit. And although nothing can ever bring back the lives that have been snatched away far too soon, this community will always remember them with love. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
Well, we're joined by GB News' Home and Security Editor Mark White to reflect on the ensuing days of violence that we've seen since those tragic murders in Southport last week. And Mark, this violence seeing no end in sight really to it at the moment, in spite of that toughened up rhetoric from the Prime Minister yesterday.
No, indeed. I mean, public order situations, they do normally have a finite lifespan. When we looked at other public order events, riots that have taken place in the past, you normally got a lifespan of about 7 to 10 days before people effectively just get bored, fed up and move on. And we've got to hope that happens in this particular case. The element to it that might change things is something we saw yesterday in particular, where groups of Muslim men who were going out into some communities and fighting directly with those groups that were out there, and a lot of them causing trouble. So there is always a potential in some communities for that kind of violence to escalate, and that would fuel basically the disorder again, and maybe bring a fresh round of disorder. We're over the weekend now. It has to be hoped that as we're in the working week again, that things might calm down, that we can have some space to breathe and that calmer heads can prevail.
Mark, I just want to bring in Dennis McShane, who's with us here in the studio, former Labour MP and political commentator on things. You know, Dennis, just looking there, Mark was introducing the attacks there on the police. Why is it the police, why do they bear the brunt of all of this?
Exactly, and I speak also as an ex-MP for Rotherham for 20 years. I know that area. 1976, there was a giant march in a by-election by the National Front, the forerunner of the BNP and the EDL. 2015, people were arrested. Also, serious disturbances in Rotherham. The BNP was strong there. UKIP had councillors elected there. Now, the police, in my view, and I really am talking from a lot of experience here, do not respond with massive presence early enough on. I think Boris Johnson produced crazy ideas like water cannon. Well, that just makes things far worse. When you see 20, 30 police, a thin blue line, oh boy, that's the target. You see 200 or 300 who are going to circle round, arrest you and put you in front of a court fast. And as in 1959, this has got such a long history, Notting Hill race riots, the judges sent the perpetrators to prison for 4 years. And I hope Keir Starmer's right when he says they'll live to regret it. Frankly, I would open a prison in Rwanda and send them all there.
Wow.
It's interesting because they'll have to open a prison somewhere because he hasn't got the cells here, has he?
Well, we've got 4,000 women in prison for non-violent crimes, and we've got judges who send people into prison for, far more than any other equivalent country in Europe. We could do a lot. We're not getting into prison reform here, but I think once the first sentences are handed down, and they are not weeks, they're not being bound over, they're not community service, they are spells in prison, that will send the right message.
Let's bring Mark White back into this, because, Mark, we understand that COBRA is meeting this morning. That's the emergency response being put together by the government. They'll be meeting in Downing Street. Some criticism this should have been held sooner. What difference do you think that will make? We've already had this suggestion of these 24-hour courts and, fast-tracking these cases through and imminent sentencing. But that's an issue with prisons, I presume, that will hold things up, if anything. But in terms of COBRA and getting, the police to calm things down, do you think this could be a turning point?
Well, listen, it's always possible, but, from COBRA's point of view, it's important to ensure that the resources are there, that they can plan out strategically how they keep those reserves, if they have much in the way of reserves after quite a few days of violence across the country and police forces from other areas moving in to help those forces that have been hit. The language that's coming from ministers, we're hearing from the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary again this morning, it's still this language of there will be a reckoning, a price to pay, we're going after the thugs, etc. No sort of message as such to the wider community. I mean, I've heard on other broadcasters this morning who are trying to delve down into some of the wider issues, but really they're talking about, do you think that the language that politicians have used in the past has fueled this? Well, it's not about the language that politicians are using, it's about what these communities are feeling and facing on a daily basis, how they've seen a fracturing and a disintegration of their society, how they've seen hotels in their areas just suddenly requisitioned without any say in that operation being done to house asylum seekers. So yes, there's no excuse at all for the terrible violence that we've seen on our streets in recent days, but there's a wider anger at play that makes a fertile ground for this kind of extremist fringe to come up and to stir these kind of emotions. And unless that, I think, is addressed, then going forward, I think we're looking at other issues of unrest in the future.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. Neil Parish is a former Conservative MP. He joins us from Somerset today. Neil, judging from your experience, there's a lot of calls about Parliament being recalled, this chaos existing, and there is a feeling that MPs should be there running the country.
Well, I think, what we must remember is that the government carries on whether Parliament's sitting or not. In some ways, it gives the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary the ability actually to be able to, call COBRA together and actually very much concentrate on what's happening with, the demonstrations and the extreme sort of thuggery and violence with it. I think none of us mind demonstrations, do we? But we cannot have this amount of destruction that's going on. But I also think, that the government will also have to come up with, good policies to actually stem the flow of asylum seekers, because I think this is sort of, it's encouraging people to demonstrate. But nobody minds demonstrations, but whatever, right-wing demonstrations, left-wing, whatever. But what you can't do, like happened in Tamworth, last night, where they hurled concrete and bricks and broke the windows, got into a hotel. Not only is it terribly violent, it is also, highly dangerous. What would happen if they got hold of people in the hotel? We do have to take this very seriously. But I think the social media side of it and and how we sort of try and stop that being, wrong information going out and hyping up the situation, that I think takes time to settle. And I think there should be a lot of work done on that. And I think as soon as Parliament comes back in September, they should be hard at work on that. But in the meantime, I think let the government get on with it. Let the police really get together, get the magistrates, sitting all night if necessary, and actually make sure these thugs are charged. That's what matters at the moment more than anything. I think Parliament coming back at this stage may also, dare I say, encourage them to think that, they are winning and they're causing a huge upset.
Well, someone who disagrees with you, Neil, is Nigel Farage, leader of Reform and himself, of course, an MP, who was actually also criticised last week by some for fanning the flames of this situation. He's issued a statement this morning saying, "I've been totally appalled by the levels of violence seen in the last couple of days. The levels of intimidation and threat to life have no place in a functioning democracy." He talks about the violence against police officers specifically and the need for a deep discussion about all of the issues facing us. But his point was, at the end, we must have a more honest debate, and he thinks a recall of Parliament would be an appropriate start to this, which, interestingly enough, is your position, Dennis.
Yeah.
I think that there is a case for it, but at the same time, if we're going to go into court cases, Parliament can't discuss it, because by definition you can't discuss anything in front of the courts. I would prefer the courts to operate very fast and start sending people to prison. We're not having this big debate. We're not having this debate also about people like Elon Musk giving £45 million a month to Donald Trump to promote right-wing racism. But Twitter now is the main mechanism for stirring all of this up.
We talked about this earlier in the programme, Dennis, and we're talking about the anonymity that goes with what you're able to post there, whatever. Do you think that you should be visible, that if you make a statement, people should know where it came from and who you are?
I've always been of the view that if you're in political life, you shouldn't hide behind anonymity. And I think social media has a responsibility. The organisers of WhatsApp, Telegram, all the different connections, and the influencers are so important. No, they don't go out and throw bricks at anybody, but when they start talking about there are too many people in here, they're not respecting the British way of life, it just creates that climate which I saw in Rotherham 20 years ago, and 10 years ago and 15 years ago, and that is also part, I'm afraid, of the problem.
But Dennis, who is going to talk to, say, the English Defence League, and we're talking, and this right wing? I mean, they're called the far right everywhere. I never hear anybody being called the far left.
Oh yes, you do. Come on, far left. Yeah, how many books of mine I've written against the far left you want?
All right. Well, who's going to talk to the far right? And should someone talk to the far right? Should someone say, look, let's talk. What is your problem? What can we do to sort this out?
The English Defence League, I mean, give me their phone number, give me their email. I mean, the fellow who's associated with most is on a sunbed in Cyprus.
Tommy Robinson.
He hates Europe, but there he is enjoying the European sunshine and stirring up poison and hate in this country. Now, the problems are very real. The plain fact is that in the last 20, 30 years, unless you're a graduate, it's quite hard to get a decent income. So in Rotherham, I saw so many children of my constituents, who would be my constituents over 18 at the time, and still, I think, for the Rotherham MPs, without a decent job. If they have a job, it's long hours, low pay, no rights, no trade unions, and that's the current boss class in Britain. And they love anybody who comes in and is prepared to work all hours, day and night, 7 days a week. They give jobs to asylum seekers, car washing, anything. And unless we actually sort out our labour market, and I'm an old trade unionist, so you forgive me for saying that, this will only get worse. And it's the same across Europe. Last year, July last year, France had they're enjoying the Olympics, but July last year, there were 6-7 days of riots, 13,000 people arrested.
So this is not unique to us. I mean, talk about it going on in Ireland as well.
Indeed so. A very good point. There were huge equivalents in Dublin a few months ago, which got very little reporting in the English press.
Neil, you're agreeing on that point there?
Yeah, I am. But the only thing I would disagree with Dennis over is that I think we've got to actually deal with the asylum seeking problem. And I think that will, and I think it's very difficult to talk to the English Defence League. But on the other hand, they do represent people who have, genuine views. Now, they take it to extremes, but that I'm very much against. But on the other hand, I don't think we can ignore that it's happening. And I think that is probably the danger. And I think also, I do actually think this is organised thuggery, because I don't think I'd be surprised. I haven't got the knowledge, but I suspect it's the same 300 or 400 people that are moving around the country. They can do that with social media very easily. They only need to send a very short message, and they can actually move people around. And so I think I think the social media side is a difficult one, because you don't want to shut down and talk, but I think you should not be able to do it with anonymity, because people say things on social media that you wouldn't think of saying in a conversation, almost as though it hasn't come from them, and that's got to be dealt with by the government. But it's not an easy one. It really.
Neil, Dennis, unfortunately, clock has beaten us. We've got to say goodbye to both of you. Thank you very much indeed for airing your opinions and putting them to us this morning.
Yeah, the time is 8:18. A good moment to take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. And the Prime Minister, as we've been saying, is expected to hold a Cobra emergency response meeting today following those attacks on hotels housing asylum seekers. This is as the country enters the 6th day of unrest. So Keir Starmer's due to involve relevant ministers and police representatives who'll discuss the response to ensure there is no repeat of the violent scenes.
Democrat nominee Kamala Harris is expected to announce her running mate for the US presidential election ahead of the Democratic National Convention. A few top contenders making up the names there, and we expect to hear a ruling on that within a few hours' time.
Pharmacy leaders are urging people not to buy weight loss jabs online as they say that shortages of Ozempic are expected to stretch into next year. The National Pharmacy Association's warned of a possible explosion in the unlicensed sale of medication online, which could lead to people risking their health by buying it without proper health checks.
Just at this point, let's take a little breather. Coming up to 8:20 on this Monday morning. Greg Dewhurst with the weather picture.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Further heavy rain across Scotland through the day today. Dry and brighter across the southeast, but a warm, humid day for everyone. Outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and Scotland this morning. Some tricky driving conditions across western parts of Scotland in particular, with a Met Office warning out for much of the day. The rain will be heavy throughout much of Monday. Further south and east, it will be drier and brighter. Best of the sunshine holding on across southeastern areas. A muggy feeling day for everyone. Temperatures rising 25 to 27 across some eastern parts of England in the best of the sunshine. A little fresher across the northwest. As we head through this evening time, the weather front just slowly pushes a little further southeastward. You can see the heavy bursts of rain pushing along it across eastern parts of Scotland. The west, though, starting to turn drier and brighter as the rain starts to move away. Northern Ireland as well, starting to see some brighter skies across the far west this evening time. But that heavy rain transferring into northern England, parts of Wales, perhaps northern coasts of Devon and Cornwall as well. Could lead to some tricky travelling conditions as we move through into the evening time. Further southeast, a dry end to the day. Overnight into Tuesday, the weather front just slowly pushes a bit further south and eastwards, affecting parts of northern England, into the Midlands, central southern England. By the end of the night, some heavy bursts in there, turning clearer behind it. Temperatures fresher here, 10, 11 Celsius, but under the cloud in the south and east, temperatures around 17 or 18 degrees, so another muggy night to come. So this band of rain just slowly pushes its way south and eastwards through Tuesday, turning brighter behind it, fresher too, but also a scattering of showers, particularly across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. Some of these will be heavy at times. Perhaps the weather front just lingering across the far southeast through the afternoon. Temperatures here 23 or 24 degrees, generally the high teens further north and east.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, we've now got to that part of the day where we can improve your day, improve your year. 30,000 quid extra. The Great British Giveaway. Have a go.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Paul's got some breaking news for you in the sport this morning.
Yeah, very sad news. England have lost one of their great left-handed batsmen of modern times as well, who's passed away at the age of just 55. I'll tell you more about that very shortly.
OK, back after this.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday. Now, time for the best part of the show, our Greatest Britain, where we share amazing people who do amazing things. And this week, that is Dr. Leo Cheng and the Reverend Hilary Cheng.
Well, Dr. Chen regularly serves as a volunteer surgeon aboard the Mercy ships in West Africa and has recently served his 17th mission aboard the ships. He volunteers with his wife, Reverend Hilary Cheng, a Methodist minister in the UK.
Thank you for joining us, and what a privilege. So just briefly explain, what are Mercy ships?
Well, Mercy ships provide world-class surgery on the ship, and the ship then sail to these poorest of the poor country because there's no infrastructure to get road or rail there. And we offer free surgery and also education, training of medical staff, and partner with the local or the host nation to build up their surgical and anaesthetic services.
So how long have you been travelling West Africa? You go on all these different ships, different ports, and you treat the needy and the vulnerable. How long have you both been doing this?
20 years.
20 years?
Just over 20 years.
And you take the time to do this out of your own holiday from work. Why do you do it?
Well, because I'm indebted to the education in this country with all the qualification I get. And NHS is great. I love the NHS because without NHS, we see cases that we see in the low-income country. And I want to make use of my hand to help those people who have no way of helping themselves. Because the tumours, the deformities, not just a physical ailment, but it's being ostracised and die early, commit suicide because they've been ostracised by their family.
When you're on the ship, you are seeing the very worst that the country can offer. I find it a great privilege to work alongside these people.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
OK, big news, the passing of very famous sportsman in the world of cricket. Paul will tell you more.
Graham Thorpe, 55 years old. I mean, that is no age. And Surrey and England legend, 16 Test hundreds. He'd scored over 200 tests playing for England. One of our great left-handed batsmen. We knew that he'd been ill. A couple of years ago, there were stories that Graham Thorpe had been ill, but hadn't heard anything for a while, and the Surrey have announced the news that he's passed away today. So very sad, but a real great,
very, very sad
England player. So very sad at the age of 55.
Well, let's try and get some better news from the Olympics.
Well, we'll start with the 100 metres yesterday, which we said, the blue ribboned event, which was won by Noah Wiles of America. Hadn't had a good start, the first two in the semi-final and also in the qualifying. He'd never actually won those races. But the thing is, everything's so tight. But he came through and only just managed to do it. We're talking about 5,000th of a second. That he got past.
Can't even imagine it. 5,000th of a second.
Well, it used to be tenths of a second back in the day, and then obviously 100ths. But they can't. I don't think they actually measured this on a stopwatch because you've got to be really on the money. Yeah. But it was done on the photo. You see at the end. Everybody is in a line. It's probably the tightest 100-metre race we've ever seen.
To the point where, did any of them actually even know who had won? Or did they have to wait for the calculations? There wasn't even a celebration.
No, that's right. Yeah. Because Wiles had actually said to Thompson, you know, you've got this. He seemed pretty certain that he'd won it, that he hadn't. And then they'd looked up at the screen, and that's the moment where they look and have to watch it. So, yeah, it was that tight.
Surely that should be declared a draw.
You know what? We had that in the high jump 4 years ago, where it was getting to the point where the two It was like, no, same with you. Do we keep jumping off, or do we agree? And they actually went to the officials and said, how about we both have gold?
Yeah.
Because that then gives someone else the chance of a bronze as well. Does it?
No, it wouldn't work that way.
Yeah, because then the silver would go to... No?
No, they don't do it that way.
With the silver.
Oh.
2 golds.
And then a bronze.
Then you get a bronze.
Oh, well, that's
then you get a bronze. So, yeah. But you know what?
It was... Give someone else a medal.
But when you're talking 9 seconds, 9.72 seconds, and also
brutal.
We've got runners as well. We've got runners as well that that didn't quite make it there, but didn't even make it to the final. But yeah. That's the Blue Ribbon event. We've got some great events coming up. 800 metres, Keely Hodgkinson goes later today, and also we've got the triathlon as well.
Oh, yeah, and all the controversy about the water and what's it going to be like.
Well, talking of which, water, when it comes to the swim, have you enjoyed the swimming events?
I've loved it. Absolutely brilliant.
The swimming is always great. One of our greatest swimmers of all time, who's also one of our greatest pundits, who I thought has really been a gold medalist for his punditry, the great Mark Foster.
The great Mark Foster.
From Paris, right now. Morning, Mark. There he is.
There he is. Yeah.
That's not the pool, is it, Mark, where you are at the moment, I'm guessing?
No, finished yesterday. I'm actually in the hotel room. I'm actually leaving today. So, apologies about backdrop and I'm holding the phone, so apologies about that as well.
Not at all.
It's the 4 drops, the important bit, Mark.
Yeah.
You're there. That's the important thing. Mark, have you had a chance to see, just from my point of view, from an Irish point of view, the lad Daniel Whiffen? He won gold. He was a bit disappointing in the 1500 yesterday as well. What a marathon event that was. What do you make of this lad?
He was number 1 in the world going in the 1500. I think he was slightly surprised to win the 8th. I mean, he went in as one of the favourites, but I think that he kind of did his job in the 800, and I think it was sort of like the emotional side of that, winning that event. When it came into the 15, Bobby Fink of the USA broke the world record. I think Whiffen thought he had a shout at it, which is good to hear, because I think come the World Championships next year and another 4-year cycle, I think he'll be in shape to do it. But it was a phenomenal race, and yeah, he's been absolutely brilliant for Ireland. I mean, phenomenal.
I don't know how you feel about this, because I think of great swimmers that we've had over the years. Everybody remembered the late, great David Wilkie in 76, and then Duncan Goodhue in 80, and yourself, and your
Sharon.
Anita Lonsborough, Sharon Davis,
Yes.
I'm throwing in some of the names. But as far as Duncan Scott is concerned, he's our most successful Olympic swimmer, but he kind of flies under the radar, or swims under the radar a little for the rest of the public. Don't you feel that way? Because I feel as if he deserves so much more that everybody should know him. He should be a household name by now.
He's phenomenal. He's obviously a clearly talented swimmer. He's not one of these ones that goes around beating his chest, so to speak. He does it very, as you say, under the radar. Got here a silver in the 200 individual medley behind the great Leon Marchand. And the 4x200 freestyle relay with Tom Dean, Matt Richards and James Guy. They retained their Olympic gold medal. But yes, it was his 8th Olympic medal, which is the most of any British athlete ever. I hope he continues for another few years. I hope he gets the accolades that he deserves. And could we see a Sir Duncan Scott at some point, hopefully. But he's just lovely, kind-natured, real team player.
Just some breaking news whilst we've been talking to you, actually, Mark, about Britain claiming a 3rd triathlon medal this morning. This is a silver in the mixed relay. So that's some great news.
And nobody caught anything in the Seine either, did they?
Not that we know of.
I was actually just watching that before you rang, because we were it was a 3-horse race between us, the USA and Germany, and I wasn't sure how it ended, so thanks for telling me.
I give you the rundown. They said basically it was a very strong start with Beth Potter. She began the last leg in the lead, but she was no match for the pace of Germany's Laura Lindemann on the final sprint, just pipping Taylor Knibb of the United States in a photo finish. So it's exciting to the last minute there.
Yeah. Quick word about Anonymity, what he was saying yesterday. I know this is a bit of an uncomfortable thing that people are talking about with the Chinese swimmers, because they are so fast, and we know what happened with certain drugs that were found in hotels a year ago. You must have had that situation, Mark, where you've swum and then you've thought, I wonder.
I think it's always, my philosophy has always been innocent until proven guilty. Last year, or after the last Olympic Games, I think there were 21 tests that were carried out, which were to do with. I'm not sure exactly what it was to do with, so I don't want to say. But when there's a red flag raised, and historically you've had some problems with testing in the past, people are always going to raise an eyebrow about grape performances, and it doesn't want to be sour grapes. But I think at the same time, you don't know, and I think with sports people want a level playing field, and when there are things that happen, you're always going to be left wondering. Now, I raced against the great Alex Popov years ago, and with systematic doping that happened in Russia, and they've since been banned. You always wonder, but I believe in innocent until proven guilty, and I thought Alex Popov was just technically a supreme athlete. So I haven't heard all about Adam's comments, but obviously he's got concerns, and it's down to World Swimming, FINA, and the Olympic organisation to take a stance against that, if there is a stance to take. But can I just say, I hope that Adam doesn't retire here. I know he sort of said he wants to see what's next, and he hasn't committed to anything, and now is not the time to commit. But he's still 29 years of age. I think he'll want to come back and rewrite the history books, as he has done already, and I hope he does. I hope this Olympics is not his last. I hope this Olympics is not just all about Leon Marchand. And my highlight of the Olympic Games, I've got to say, men's 4x2 from a British perspective, and Ben Proud, 4th in 2016, 5th in 2020, and now adding and finishing to his collection and getting a silver medal in 50 freestyle, which is the most competitive swimming event there is, men's 50 free.
Fantastic.
Just final point to you. Would you swim in the Seine? Would you have any reservations?
You've swum in all conditions.
I've walked down the Seine a few times, and I've got to say, I don't think the Thames looks that nice to swim in, but if you look in the Seine, you wouldn't get me in there. And I just hope after this game, a lot of people don't get more sick. I just hope.
Well,
Interesting.
yeah.
And I've got one more, and the thing is, I love swimming, but I hate cold water. Is all Olympic swimming pools, are the temperature usually about the same? Is it warm, or is it cold when you get in?
It's normally between 27 and 28.
That's warm.
I don't go in less than 31.
We were also having a debate this morning about whether or not you sweat when you swim, but it looks like he's gone. So we're going to leave that one on a cliff edge.
I think
we're never going to know the answer. I think the answer is yes, you do, but the water gets to clean it off you.
It does,
as you go. It's very.
I don't want to swim in anybody's sweat in the future. That's the thing.
There we go.
Thanks, Paul. That was a busy one. Thank you very much indeed. Back with the papers right after this. Don't go away.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M90 in Edinburgh, there are 2 out of 3 lanes closed southbound where a car's broken down at junction 1A at Queensferry. There are queues from junction 1B at Ferry Toll. There are delays of up to half an hour to trains between Tamworth and Birmingham New Street after a points problem. On the M11 in Cambridgeshire, there's a lane closed each way between junction 13 near Cambridge and 14 for the A14 for barrier repairs. After an accident on Saturday evening, there are queues from junction 11 for the A10 and back along the A14 from junction 24. On the A1M in Hertfordshire, there's a lane closed southbound between junctions 8 and 7 near Stevenage for repairs after an accident overnight, with queues from junction 9 at Letchworth. And in Newport, the A48 is closed each way along Chepstow Road at Langston for emergency repairs to a burst water main. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Harry and Meghan are in Colombia, which they are probably hoping there will be a threat to kidnap them, which will get them highlighted across in the...
They're planning to go to Colombia, apparently, but they have been on CBS Network yesterday as they're launching their Parents Network project to support families affected by suicide, abuse and self-harm. And, of course, Meghan reflecting on her own period where she was planning her own suicide.
Go on.
This would have got much bigger coverage had it not been for, obviously, the unrest we've seen over the weekend with the riots. But, yeah, it's you know, this is literally how many years after the infamous Oprah Winfrey one where they put a bomb under the royal family? Yeah. So that we're, you know, this is launching this Parents Network, which is to empower a community of families to support and uplift one another. Forgive me for sounding slightly cynical here, but these are two people that don't even talk to their own families. So it's you know, there is a bit of an issue with that one going on. But they're giving an interview, and it's about mental health and it's about suicide. And obviously, Meghan then reflects on, as we know from the previous interview, her own suicidal thoughts when she was pregnant with Archie and when she had Archie. And she, you know, she said, you know, she told Oprah Winfrey, 2021, wasn't it? I just didn't want to be alive anymore. And so it's look, it's a good thing. I'm not knocking them for that. You know, mental health is incredibly important, and we do need to talk about these issues, and certainly amongst children. And Harry said that, you know, we all need to be first responders. We do need to be able to understand what our children are going through and help our children out in this way. It's just the irony again of it all coming back to seemingly be about them rather than the cause
not even
they're promoting.
About Meghan.
About Meghan.
She says, I haven't really scraped the surface on my experience. I'd never want someone else to be making those sorts of plans, and I would never want someone else not to be believed.
Well, infamously, it wasn't, you know, when she was talking about her mental health issues, I mean, there was this big fuss about I couldn't get any support, the royal family wouldn't support me, and this is when Harry's been in therapy most of his life and had a therapist on speed dial. So there were gaps in what they were saying back then. There are gaps in, as I said, she doesn't even talk to her own dad. So, you know, what, you know, is there a parent support network for, you know, her family? And indeed, Harry's dad, who is so scared of meeting his own son that he keeps it very brief, and he's only met Archie and Lilibet twice.
OK, Chris, an enhanced games in Silicon Valley. We're talking about athleticism here, but using drugs.
Yeah. I mean, it's an age-old discussion in athletics. They say that, oh, you know, so many people are using drugs, that you should legalise it. Well, there's a group of Silicon Valley tycoons. They are venture capitalists who want to begin the enhanced games as early as next year. They picked 5 sports: track and field athletics, swimming, weightlifting, combat sports, another. And what they're saying is they're going to pay athletes to take drugs. So you'd get paid $100,000, 78 grand pounds, and you can't cheat there because everyone's cheating. Of course, it doesn't take the brains of Einstein to realise that there will be a few young men, maybe also women, but young men who would take that risk, who would inject themselves with all sorts, put themselves open to the scientists and the doctors, and then be dead within 10 years. So I would want to think it's like a tongue-in-cheek, but it seems very serious.
No, it's real. It's real.
But, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, there are performance-enhancing drugs that aren't illegal, but they're not legal to perform in sports taking. For example, if you were a gladiator, which my kids absolutely love watching, a lot of the guys on there are so huge, they look like they've been enhanced, but I don't think they've broken the law to get there.
No, well, I mean...
I don't know.
Yeah, if you take any sorts of steroids...
Is that really steroids illegal?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
well, 100%.
Know that. Yeah.
Oh,
I thought a lot of people took those in gyms and things.
Well, a lot of people do take them in gyms, but it is still illegal. You know, people doing recreational stuff is different, but you couldn't compete at any sort of games and take those sort of drugs. But by the way, this is not just drugs. This is also AI, glasses that allow you to see better. Basically, it'd be the bionic games.
What's your view on that? I mean, if you're not actually taking drugs, but you're using glasses that zone out certain areas or whatever, what's your view?
No, so I mean there is a line because you know there are some countries in the world where you don't have the facilities like a gymnasium or a tractor training or spikes training. So there is competitive advantages I can see, but there has to be a line. No, I don't like the idea of any artificial aid. It should be the fastest, strongest, and the furthest naturally.
Well, we're heading. Sorry, Don. We're heading straight towards the break, and we're going through that tape, and we'll be back right after this.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
You'll relate to this one. We've all been there, haven't we? Tensions high in the car as you head off on the latest adventure or holiday during the summer break.
Now, with the average family set to spend about 3.5 hours a week together in the car driving on the roads during the holidays, new research has shown that our relationships could be tested to the limit.
Yes, figures show that 21% are having arguments for simple things like the driver going the wrong way, which we were saying is not actually very simple. That's very simple.
I was going to say that. I'm surprised it's just 21%. Yeah. So if I was going the wrong way down the road,
you'd know about it.
You'd hear from me.
A further 20% squabbling over how their partner drives, yes, and 25% admitting to being more prone to rowing when their kids are misbehaving. It's a lot to deal with, isn't it?
Fair enough.
Well, we're joined now by dating and relationship coach and author Persia Lawson. Good to see you this morning, Persia. What is it about being in a car that just makes things so tense?
Well, I think it's probably quite obvious, isn't it? It's the fact that we are in a confined space, we can't go anywhere, and it can just really create so much tension and stress, especially if you and your other half or a family member, whoever you're in the car with, are going through a little bit of a tricky time. And if it's really hot outside, that doesn't help either. So inevitably, it creates a lot of irritation and bickering, I would say, from my experience.
And what is it about children? If you add children into the mix, it just makes things very, very difficult, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of, are we there yet?
Yeah.
Kicking the back seat and just squabbles, kicking the siblings. So adding children into the mix is just going to turn the heat up on that tension.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Dawn and Chris, they've got the stories in the papers today making the news. What would you like to go for next, Dawn?
Oh, let's go for the fake fat jab, if you don't mind.
Oh, God, yes, no, absolutely.
That, because this is
Ozempic.
the demand for Ozempic is so strong that people are buying fakes, and there's lots of health warnings about that.
Yeah, the National Pharmacy Association have warned of a possible explosion in the unlicensed sale of medication online, with people risking their health by purchasing Ozempic and the other drug, Wegovy, I think it's called, without proper checks. Basically, these drugs were invented for type 2 diabetics, right, because they can control sugar, and you can get them NHS prescription.
And because of the popularity and demand of them, people who suffer from type 2 diabetes
can't get them.
Yeah.
No, that's the problem, Eamonn.
They should be prioritised ahead of anyone
Of course,
struggling
but you
with.
can't get them online. And if you know, as I do, you know someone with type 2 diabetes who does need this drug legitimately, not just for a vain, I want to lose weight reason, but to manage their condition, they're having to buy it privately in any case, because the NHS has run out. And it is dangerous, and it is a dangerous drug. There are side effects, and people are just buying it online. It's very easy to do without any health checks whatsoever. And we were talking about drugs and athletics earlier on, Chris, and it's like, you don't know what it's doing to your body if you haven't got medical approval.
Well, you hear about the Gwyneth Paltrow set, don't you, all in the Hamptons having sort of...
Oh, the explosive diarrhea story.
Awful.
What, sorry?
Sorry.
No, it's...
You haven't,
haven't heard this. What?
One of Gwyneth Paltrow's friend, they were having one of those weekends like they do in the Hamptons in New York, and one of her friends, who's quite clearly on one of these weight loss drugs, had an explosive diarrhea episode.
Oh dear!
Because of the ejection.
Apparently that's really common. And so people have been having. People are saying, look, it might make you skinny, but you might basically be incontinent. So good luck with that.
And Gwynny wasn't too happy about having to clean. I'm sure Gwynny cleans her own bathrooms, by the way, having to clean the mess up.
Well, let's perfume the air.
Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, well done, Eamonn. Great.
After
well
that,
done.
So this is a scent. Or a perfume,
can you
like an aftershave for dogs.
I see a little fluffy doggy.
You see, and I love the headline. In my best Henry Cooper, splash you all over.
Yeah.
Splash you all over. So it's a perfume, and dogs are your best friend, a companion, your therapist, and now you can do the sort of one-upmanship and get the Dolce & Gabbana Fifi for your dog, and it's got this special scent of ylang ylang and some other sort of mixture in it, and it makes your pooch smell absolutely fabulous.
Some dogs do stink.
Well, exactly. It covers.
Some houses stink of dog.
Dog, exactly.
Which is not nice. It's like damp dog smell. Or sometimes it's like bone smell of like what they've been eating.
Exactly.
So I think it's great, as long as it doesn't harm the dog.
Well, no, so it doesn't harm the dog, and the dogs can still smell
each other
underneath what you put.
That would be my worry, that they couldn't actually smell who they are. I mean, if you want to smell someone's bottom, the way the dogs do,
I hate that.
would you still?
It's so embarrassing when a dog comes and sniffs.
Would you be?
Sniffs your bottom.
Well, it's worse if it sniffs your bottom instead. You know, you were talking about splash it all over, and there was Henry Cooper. Kevin Keegan.
Yeah, Kevin Keegan. Daley Thompson.
Daley Thompson was definitely there.
Daley Thompson, So there was Old Spice, Brute, and I forgot what the other one was.
Who else was splashing it all over? Kevin Keegan, Daley Thompson.
Some motor racer. I'm trying to think who that was.
Oh, yeah. Was it James Hunt?
Yeah, I think it was James Hunt. Yeah.
Do they still make that?
Oh, Brute. Fabergé, I don't know.
You can get Old Spice still, I know that.
Because that was the thing back there, when you were kids.
I love Old Spice. My father used to wear Old Spice.
So did I. My dad used to love Old Spice. It reminds me of Dad.
And if you ever wanted to buy them anything for birthday or Christmas, if it was always...
The Old Spice set.
Which means it must have been very cheap and affordable.
Yeah.
But it did the job. At Christmas.
Yeah, to be able to do that. Yeah.
But Brute was very distinctive, wasn't it?
Sounds good. 85 quid a
£85 a bottle. And of course, so you've got to be quite wealthy.
Like all perfumes, this one's super pricey.
And it'd have a distinctive smell, because apparently there are dog perfumes out there anyway already for 10, 15 quid. But this one would have a distinct smell, so you would know. It'll be, what's the word I'm looking for?
Upper crust.
Upper crust, yeah, exactly.
Basically, so many people don't want to work, and they want to work from home and all sort of thing. Now, 1 in 3 working parents with young children will consider taking jobs that only required them to work during school term times.
Yeah,
this is your story.
Yeah, it's a job share opportunity, isn't it? So some people who can work through the holidays, some people who've got parents, got elderly parents, who've got children, can't work through the school holidays. So you would choose your time, you'd job share, and then seasonal activity. I mean, a lot of my work as a professional speaker is seasonal. I don't work through the holidays, not because I don't want to, but because companies don't employ speakers when people are away. Oh, yeah.
Right, well, during holidays.
Quiet in the summer.
It's quiet in the summer, yeah. Basically, you're quite busy from about October up until Christmas.
Well, it's going to be quiet for us from here on in. We've got to say goodbye to both of you. And thank you, Chris Akabusi and Dawn Neeson, for your contributions into the news this morning.
After a glorious weekend of weather, here's Greg Dewhurst telling us what you can expect this week with your forecast.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Further heavy rain across Scotland through the day today. Drier and brighter across the southeast, but a warm, humid day for everyone. Outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and Scotland this morning. Some tricky driving conditions across western parts of Scotland in particular, with a Met Office warning out for much of the day. The rain will be heavy throughout much of Monday. Further south and east, it will be drier and brighter. Best of the sunshine holding on across southeastern areas. A muggy feeling day for everyone. Temperatures rising 25 to 27 across some eastern parts of England in the best of the sunshine. A little fresher across the northwest. As we head through this evening time, the weather front just slowly pushes a little further southeastward. You can see the heavy bursts of rain pushing along it across eastern parts of Scotland. The west, though, starting to turn drier and brighter as the rain starts to move away. Northern Ireland as well, starting to see some brighter skies across the far west this evening time. But that heavy rain transferring into northern England, parts of Wales, perhaps northern coasts of Devon and Cornwall as well. Could lead to some tricky travelling conditions as we move through into the evening time. Further southeast, a dry end to the day. Overnight into Tuesday, the weather front just slowly pushes a bit further south and eastwards, affecting parts of northern England, into the Midlands, central southern England. By the end of the night, some heavy bursts in there, turning clearer behind it. Temperatures fresher here, 10, 11 Celsius, but under the cloud in the south and east, temperatures around 17 or 18 degrees, so another muggy night to come. So this band of rain just slowly pushes its way south and eastwards through Tuesday, turning brighter behind it, fresher too, but also a scattering of showers, particularly across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. Some of these will be heavy at times. Perhaps the weather front just lingering across the far southeast through the afternoon. Temperatures here 23 or 24 degrees, generally the high teens further north and east.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M90 in Edinburgh, 2 out of 3 lanes are closed southbound where a car's broken down at junction 1A at Queensferry. It's taking nearly half an hour now in queues from junction 1C at Admiralty. Trains have been stopped between Rotherham Central and Sheffield because of a points failure. On the M11 in Cambridgeshire, there's a lane closed each way between junctions 13 and 14 near Cambridge for emergency barrier repairs after an accident on Saturday evening. There are queues from junction 11 for the A10 and back along the A14 from junction 24. On the M11 in Essex, there's a lane closed southbound just after junction 5 at Loughton where someone's broken down, causing 2 miles of queues. On the A1M in Hertfordshire, there's a lane closed southbound between junctions 8 and 7 near Stevenage for barrier repairs after an accident overnight. And in Newport, the A48 is closed at Langston for repairs to a burst water main. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's a week since the country was shocked by a horrific knife attack on the children's dance class in Southport.
Protests and riots right across the country all week. We're now entering a 6th day of unrest.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer is holding a Cobra emergency response meeting today as he condemns violence on the streets and has vowed that those involved will regret it.
We've been asking, is it time for politicians to recall Parliament in the wake of what's going on?
Top contenders for Kamala Harris's running mate have been interviewed by the Vice President as the announcement is expected imminently.
Being online, should you be allowed to be, I forget the word.
Anonymous.
Anonymous is the word, yeah, or not. But anyway, we won't be talking about that anyway. And it's just gone 9 o'clock. You're very welcome to breakfast here on GB News.
Well, another night of violence and terror right across the country as violent thugs targeted and burnt down asylum seeker hotels in both Rotherham and Tamworth. And that's whilst people were inside.
If you were there and you experienced this, do get in touch with us this morning. Downing Street will hold a Cobra emergency meeting today after the disorder escalating over the past week.
But the people of Southport are still grieving, as our reporter Sophie Reaper tells us in her latest report, a warning, though this does contain references to suicide.
The babies. The babies.
A community still in shock. 7 days ago, the brutal knife attack in Southport sent shockwaves through Merseyside and beyond.
It's horrific. It's horrific. I feel for the parents. I feel for everybody in Southport, and I had to come because it's what we do. It's what Merseyside does.
Lynn works at a children's club similar to the one where the attack took place. She says if it were her, she wouldn't be able to cope with the grief.
If it was me, I would have the inclination of killing myself, because that's the way it makes me feel. And that's why I've come from Liverpool. I had to come from anywhere. Today's just to pay me respects.
Over the last week, people like Lynn have travelled from far and wide to support this community in mourning. But in the face of such reckless hate, the residents of Southport have come together.
I feel angry at what's been done, but I refuse to allow it to make me a victim. You know, it's not going to make me feel unsafe. This has always been a safe area, and I'm not going to change. I don't want people to have to feel unsafe in their own homes because some idiot did something.
Here in In Southport, flowers have been laid and candles have been lit. And although nothing can ever bring back the lives that have been snatched away far too soon, this community will always remember them with love. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
Well, earlier, the Secretary of State for Defence, John Healey, whose constituency Rotherham falls in, had this to say.
I mean, you can see for yourselves here, this is devastating. This was an area that was seized with shock and fear throughout yesterday. The staff and residents here barricaded in the hotel as people were breaking the windows, trying to set fire to the hotel. Local residents holed up in their homes or have to flee to in-laws as they saw marauding mobs, and finally for the police on the ground, on the front line, taking injuries and facing a level of violence they've not seen in South Yorkshire for many years, and doing it to protect us all. We've all been frustrated for nearly 3 years, the fact that this is a hotel used for asylum seekers. It's totally inappropriate in this area, but nothing justifies the level of violence and disorder. It was a level of vandalism and it was violence. It was directed against the hotel. It was intimidating staff and the residents, and it put fear throughout the whole of the rest of the neighbourhood. We will have a programme now. I know a number of them are going to come and help with the clear up. That's going to start in about an hour's time. We'll try and put in place now things that will help the estate settle down, make people feel safe and settled again here, and that's going to be a priority for me. It'll be a priority for the councillors as well as for the local councillors.
John Healey, Mark White joins us now in the studio. Mark's our Home Security editor. You know, he's saying so people can start feeling safe again and whatever. Would you? Where do we go from here? What happens next? Who's to say this wouldn't happen again?
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all, we've absolutely got to condemn quite rightly the violence that's taken place here, that of course the government has determined to categorise as thuggery, far right, organised and inspired. But we've also got to look at the wider issues. What we have are communities that feel that their communities have been slowly disintegrating over the years, and as such that makes fertile ground for those that want to exploit those concerns and that anger that's been slowly building in these communities. But the difficulty is, now that we've reached the stage of such violence across the country, it's very difficult to have that conversation without being shouted down by those who say, look, you're just making excuses for the rioters. And I'm not. The rioting should absolutely be condemned. But we do need to look at the wider issue of societal decline in communities who really feel that they've been forgotten.
You know what these rioters want? Do they want that dialogue? Do they want that idea that they can talk to someone, they can plead their case to someone? Or is it all just about, you know, we'll smash windows, we'll burn bins until we get our way? I
think the danger is that we have the chattering classes here in London and in Westminster in particular over-intellectualising what the people want. The people just know that in their communities they've seen that decline in their standards of living, in the way in which their communities interact over the years. And maybe it's difficult for a lot of them to actually articulate what they want done in their communities. But there's no doubt they are very, very unhappy with what has happened. And if we look at one thing, for instance, which is the migrant hotels, which is particularly pertinent, as those horrific events have shown in Rotherham and also in Tamworth last night, where 2 migrant hotels were attacked and migrants were inside. So that could have been very, very dangerous indeed for those inside. But right across the country, there are migrant hotels that have sprung up in communities that these communities have never had any say about whatsoever. They've never been consulted. They just hear that the local hotel is taken out of commission, and then they realise actually it's being utilised for migrants in their communities. That again adds to the intention, the tension in those communities. But once again, just saying, look, there is no excuse for this kind of violent disorder that we're seeing on our streets. but all the time just recognising there is a backdrop.
It's interesting. I mean, a lot of people have been making the comparison with sort of football hooliganism, and you don't have people sort of wringing their hands going, let's sit down with the football hooligans and understand why they're racist. What is it that's making you make these racist chants? Because it's just a sense that it's mindless and just sort of buggery. But there's a different feeling when it comes to this. Do you think that's fair to say?
Well, I mean, I think the thing about football hooliganism, there's a similarity in that there's definitely a level of organisation. So there are individuals that would be stoking up things online, but what they're doing is exploiting the tensions in those communities. It is absolutely not, and it's lazy to just say that this is all far right, because it really isn't. Last week, when we were looking at quite a number of the court appearances, the people that were appearing in court were not, as we were being told, far-right extremists who travelled from different parts of the country. They were people from those local communities.
We've got to go to Christopher Hope now, our political editor, for his take. And Mark was talking there just about who is listening to these people who are deemed to be far right. And is anybody interested listening to them? We hear the Prime Minister's talking about he'll have them arrested, he'll have them chucked in jail in cells that he doesn't have. Last week we had no prison cells, and now he's about to throw half the country into them. What do you make of what's going on, Christopher?
Morning, Eamonn. Morning, Isabel. That's right. Well, Mark White is correct in saying that. He says, rightly, there needs to be a degree of an attempt to understand why people are so cross, why they're so furious at a local level, while condemning the horrific violence. But so far, we've heard from the government how they're going to crack down further on travel bans, maybe on further tagging, prison jailing them. We had, I think, over 400 or so arrested so far. We know that thousands will be released next month from prisons to ease overcrowding. So frankly, where will they find the cell space? We'll hear later from Sir Keir Starmer. He'll be chairing a meeting of the COBRA, the Cabinet Office briefing room meeting with other police chiefs. But I think the political response so far has been one to say we'll crack down, we'll show how tough we are and dealing correctly with the violence against police and everyone else. But when will they try and think, well, why is this happening? And that's the wider question. When this has calmed down, that's a longer-term question, I think, for all of our leaders.
OK, Christopher Hope, thanks very much. Let's bring in now the Shadow Home Secretary, James Cleverly. Good morning to you. Just first of all, your reaction to the scenes we've seen over the weekend.
Well, the scenes that we've all witnessed, violence against police officers, violence against community facilities, violence against places of worship, mosques, arson, all these things are completely unacceptable, and they cannot and must not be justified. The people who are perpetrating this violence need to be brought to justice. When the government takes appropriate action, we will support them, and when they have been slow off the mark, as I fear they have been. It was only yesterday afternoon we found out that Keir Starmer was going to cancel his holiday plans. COBRA is only meeting today after many days of violence and disorder. Why did COBRA not meet last week to make the decisions about mutual aid, support for police officers, extra funding, coordination across government departments? The Labour Party have got to get used to the fact they are no longer in opposition. It's not just about what you say, it's about what you do, and they have been slow off the mark.
It's interesting you say what you do, James. What about bringing these people who are rioting, who obviously have a grievance, and the grievance is not one that's just concerned in one part of the country, it's widespread. Why not bring these people around the table? Should they be talked to or not?
Well, the people perpetrating violence, there is only one appropriate response. Behaving badly does not buy you a seat at the top table. Behaving in a violent manner, attacking police officers, perpetrating arson, that does not buy you a voice at the top table. Now, there is a discussion, a legitimate discussion that needs to be had about immigration, about asylum, about race relations. I gave a speech on this issue in New York at the Carnegie Institute and the margins of the United Nations earlier this year, when I said governments internationally need to work better together to deal with criminally facilitated illegal migration, to make sure that we do not allow this conversation to be dominated by extremist voices. That still needs to happen, but the immediate response to violence and disorder and arson has got to be a criminal justice response.
Your government was responsible for requisitioning 450 hotels to house illegal immigrants in. Do you bear any responsibility for the reactions that we've seen and these attacks that we've seen in recent days?
Well, we've got to recognise that the UK, along with other countries, the United States of America, Australia, countries across Europe, we are all dealing with an unprecedented nature of international migration. This is the point that I was making when I was in New York. As Home Secretary, we reduced the need for asylum accommodation. We were able to close over 100 asylum hotels, and we were planning to continue doing that. Upon entering government, the Labour Party scrapped some big elements of our migration policy, including Rwanda, which was part of the deterrent effect, including scrapping some of the measures that I took to reduce the levels of net migration. So dealing with migration is incredibly important. I want to see the Labour government do better on that. But this violence and disorder is different. People are using excuses to perpetrate violence against ethnic minority groups and places of worship. There is no place for that in British society. That is not who we are. So a conversation about immigration is important, but dealing with violence and disorder is also incredibly important.
Could I ask you, James, I talked to you and just something dawned on me, and that was your skin colour, your skin type. I would never talk to anybody and see their skin colour first, but I realise that this may be relevant to you and a man like you, and I'm not in your skin, and I don't experience what you experience. Are you more sensitive to what is going on here? Do you see the dangers and the repercussions of what could follow because of what's going on?
Well, look, my experience, a mixed-race family. My mum was from Sierra Leone in West Africa. She came over here in the 1960s, worked in the NHS her whole career. I was born and brought up in Lewisham. I remember August 1977, the National Front marching through the streets of Lewisham, almost past the end of the street on which I lived. So I've seen this throughout my life. Now, I know certain things to be true. The UK is an open-hearted and welcoming nation. We have a uniquely positive history of race relations, and that's not to say it has always been perfect. It hasn't. But compared with other countries around the world, we're in a really, really good place. And it is something we should protect and something we should value. And when it is put at risk, we are duty-bound to do something about it. Now, the fact is there are people with skin colour like mine who are now fearful. And the government has a duty to make sure that they are safe and that they feel safe. If they do that, we will support them. But when they are not doing it as quickly or as effectively as possible, we will call them out on that. So that is our job now in opposition. The government's job is to repair this situation.
Priti Patel, member of the party that you're in, but also competing to be leader of it, has said this morning that she would be frightened to go to some of these areas where there's been violence. Do you share those fears as a person of, an ethnic background?
Well, as I say, I've experienced this firsthand, luckily not in anything like the way some communities are. The simple fact is that people who have got an ethnic minority background, but also just the peaceful, law-abiding people in cities and towns across the country are scared. And they are scared because they see violence, and there has always been a strong empathy and sympathy of people across communities. And we've seen that actually where people come together in the aftermath of this violence to help clear up, people from all the communities in the local areas. That's the country I recognise, that's the country that we need to protect. Those are the people who represent the best of us, and those are the people on whose side we should all be in government.
James Cleverly, Shadow Home Secretary, appreciate your thoughts, particularly appreciate your thoughts today on all of this, and thanks for talking so openly. We hope peace is the next thing that breaks out, and that the people who feel threatened by all of this are protected and can feel safe. Thank you very much indeed for your time today, and we'll keep you posted here on GB News Breakfast as to what is going on. And Bev and Andrew are up next. We're going to be talking to them after this short break.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Most people will be familiar with French artists such as Auguste Renoir, Claude Monet and Camille Pissarro, who with others made up the Impressionist movement of the late 19th century. But we are probably less familiar with the British contingent of the Impressionists, artists like Frank Bramley, Elizabeth Armstrong Forbes and Walter Langley, amongst many others. David Messam is on a mission to change that. I'm joined by David Messam and by Patrick Duffy, an esteemed archivist. These people we're talking about, are they really Impressionists? I mean, I assume they're British, but are they Impressionists?
I think we had the same query, and we wrote a book about the whole thing in '85, actually. And we were the book nearly went out as The Garden of Bright Images, actually, though my author then, Laura Wortley, was quite insistent that it should be called The Garden of Bright Images, but I thought probably we'd put it in the gardening section, actually. So, you know, the question you ask is what is on other people's minds, too. Actually, have we got Impressionism in this country? I think for me, as I used to do quite a lot of shopping, if you like, in America, looking for English pictures out there, and they've got American Impressionism, and I'm quite happy with it, but the English are different.
Were they friends and colleagues? Were they collaborators with the French Impressionists?
Broadly speaking, British Impressionism is, as we term it, is the post-Impressionist movement. So they were certainly inspired by the French Impressionist movement as it was, but they came later. They travelled around Europe and became attuned to plein air painting, so painting outdoors, and that's what they brought over with them. We call it British realism, but there's a focus.
British realism, I kind of recognise that.
Yes.
I mean, that's exactly what that looks like.
Exactly. The People's Channel.
Britain's newsroom, 9:30. Andrew and Beverly, and Beverly's summerly dressed. Andrew is too, but you can't see his trousers. There's his trousers.
Summer uniform. Put your knees away.
All there. Very good to see. You know, guys, here we are in the summer, and there should be, you know, lovely, relaxing times. And yet, I remember, you know, Toxteth and Tottenham and so many things. It seems to be the summer that brings out the worst in people.
It's partly the heat, isn't it? It's a factor. But we've got a really interesting guest in the studio with us, Zia Yusuf, who's the chairman of Reform UK, Muslim, very successful businessman. We're going to ask him, is the criticism fair that some Reform MPs have been provoking some of this discontent?
You make a good point, Eamonn, though, about the fact that we have always had riots. There will always be a small number of men without purpose, who are just angry, and for them it's fun to go out and throw bricks at police officers and set alight a citizens' advice bureau. These idiots have always existed.
Yeah, and libraries, and I saw footage yesterday on the news of people laughing, people saying, oh, look at this, and they're on their phone.
Exactly.
And they thought it was fun.
And a lot of those people, and it is a very, I don't think the way that a lot of the media is covering this story is particularly nuanced, because some of those idiots won't be racist as such. Some of them absolutely are a good old-fashioned sort of 1970s type of discrimination against
there's
skin
a couple
colour,
of things.
but a lot of them won't be.
The word thuggery is used by the politicians, is used by the media as well, and it talks about the far right thugs. I never hear anybody talking about the far left thugs as well, and sometimes I think you have to, Isabel's not so sure about this, but I think sometimes you've got to differentiate and you've got to say, right, what is your problem? Let me listen to you. I think these people do need talking to and addressed to.
My point is just that you don't sit down with a football hooligan that's been chanting racist slurs and say, why is it that
how do you think they solved the problem in Northern Ireland? They solved the problem in Northern Ireland by talking to both sides. And if you don't do that, you're not going to solve anything.
And the police say in Hartlepool, for instance, where they've had lots of disturbances, many of the people on the streets are local people who are nothing to do with the far right. They're not agitators or activists. They're just fed up. They feel that they've been forgotten.
And remember, we've got a record number of young men who aren't working, who aren't in training, who aren't in education. They've got a lot of time on their hands and they don't know what to do with themselves.
Well, you have a lot of time in your hands, but you are working and you'll be doing it from 9:30. So thank you both very much indeed.
Look forward to it.
Thank you for watching and listening today. We're going to be back tomorrow morning to do it all again from 6 a.m.
Yeah, but for now, here's one last look at your forecast. Bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Further heavy rain across Scotland through the day today. Dry and brighter across the southeast, but a warm, humid day for everyone. Outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and Scotland this morning. Some tricky driving conditions across western parts of Scotland in particular, with a Met Office warning out for much of the day. The rain will be heavy throughout much of Monday. Further south and east, it will be drier and brighter. Best of the sunshine holding on across southeastern areas. A muggy feeling day for everyone. Temperatures rising 25 to 27 across some eastern parts of England in the best of the sunshine. A little fresher across the northwest. As we head through this evening time, the weather front just slowly pushes a little further southeastward. You can see the heavy bursts of rain pushing along it across eastern parts of Scotland. The west, though, starting to turn drier and brighter as the rain starts to move away. Northern Ireland as well, starting to see some brighter skies across the far west this evening time. But that heavy rain transferring into northern England, parts of Wales, perhaps northern coasts of Devon and Cornwall as well. Could lead to some tricky travelling conditions as we move through into the evening time. Further southeast, a dry end to the day. Overnight into Tuesday, the weather front just slowly pushes a bit further south and eastwards, affecting parts of northern England, into the Midlands, central southern England. By the end of the night, some heavy bursts in there, turning clearer behind it. Temperatures fresher here, 10, 11 Celsius, but under the cloud in the south and east, temperatures around 7.